Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. I'm your host, John Maddox, and tonight we're having another stream you just won't want to miss. If you got what it takes, click that link or prepare yourself, for this arena is not for the weak. Now, let the mental combat begin, but always make sure your arguments are LPP.
But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. It is for this reason that we implore you, bring it. We want to hear your best arguments for God and why you believe it. 25 seasons, zero proof of God. Follow Peter's instructions and call the show. The Atheist Experience, Sundays 4:30 p.m. Central, youtube.com/The Atheist Experience.
What's up, everybody? I couldn't resist. That was shared with me right here at the beginning of the chat, and I listened to that, and it was very apropos, given the fact that atheists everywhere can thank the one and only Matt Dillahunty for my existence here on YouTube, for the variety of battles that I've had with all sorts of individuals, some brutal, some nice, some all sorts of different things. It's been interesting 2 years. So 2 days from now, so on February the 4th, it will be exactly 2 years from whence I started this channel and had my first debate with the one and only James Downard over on Modern Day Debate. But it was the one and only Matt Dillahunty that got me inspired to start a YouTube channel, to engage in debates, and to go up and down throughout the different channels. I joked that I was kind of starting off, in the scrum, Rocky style in the meat factory. You're doing the fights backstage and then starting to move up. I still haven't made it to the all the way up to the main event yet, but hopefully at some point. Even though I came so close, ladies and gentlemen, I came so close to a debate with Dillahunty in September of 2020, and then it slipped through my fingers, and who knows if it'll ever come back, but at some point it may. Okay, so real quick, want to get some shout outs to folks. We also got people doing super chats. Thank you guys so much. Jerome being a member, Conrad, and let's see, somebody else just gave a super chat. Oh, Andrew Coffin did some super stickers. Wesley Coleman, thanks so much, Wesley, says, congrats, you deserve it. May your streams be long and have many a dumpster fire. Well, my after shows have become known for some dumpster fires. And let's see, Utopia Buster shouldn't be blocked. And your comment, did you comment, or are you talking about a chat? I'm not sure which one we're talking about right now. And the one and only Bread of Life is in the building as well. What's going on? How are you? It's pretty fun to be, when these people come together. Hopefully we'll have a good party tonight and have some fun. Slavic, super chat. Thanks so much. Says congrats on 2K. Let's go up to 2 million. Appreciate that. Hopefully it will come together, make some just a little bit of snowballing here pretty soon. That would be awesome. And the one and only Kevin's Biblical Discussions also in the house. Redefined Living. I think I saw him somewhere around here as well. And it's always fun to have these folks joining us. And then backstage already, we've got the one and only Jackson Rowe is hopped backstage. What's up, Jackson? How you doing? Are you over COVID, or have you turned into a long COVID case?
I think it's going to be a long case. No, it's getting up better. Congrats on the 2000.
Oh, appreciate it. You know, it's I was kind of gone for the last 2.5 months. So much stuff, Christmas and winter season and all that kind of stuff, and also doing some prep for things that are going to be going on in 2022. So I'm trying to get back in the old curve again, and it's fun to do these types of streams, and you never know what might happen. Or like the ones that I fell asleep on that you guys kept going on. I woke up the next day and it went for 7 hours. I'm glad you guys are having a good time.
I didn't stay the whole time. I was knocked out.
Oh, did you?
By the time Donnie got in, I was too tired to really debate anymore. So.
Oh, okay. Excuses, Jackson. Excuses. Yeah. What's up, Slavic? How you doing, man? Welcome to the stream.
Doing good. Congratulations, 2000. Yeah, up to now 2 million. Here, that's the next goal. Maybe by next year, right?
Well, yeah, you're just gonna have some crazy snowball effect, but hey, it could happen. Miracles occur.
Yeah. I'm kind of embarrassed to get back on because last time I was, last live stream, I was listening to you guys talk and then I dozed off.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I'm like, I woke up at 5 a.m. and they're still talking. I'm like, oh man, I better get
off. Well, see, I learned my lesson back in 2020 with, some of those. I mean, we had some crazy epic after shows, and I had some streams that went I think the longest one we went for like 14 hours, and I fell asleep at probably like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up at 11 or something. And Jungle Jargon and a couple other people were still going. And I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. What really boiled down to for me was I don't mind if they keep going as long, and even if crazy stuff happens, as long as I wasn't present, I can always have plausible deniability, right? Like if my icon is gone, then in case something crazy does happen, it's like, I literally wasn't there, folks. Like I cannot be held responsible for something for which I was not present, Yeah,
it's funny. You got to start doing? You got to start clipping some of the crazier parts and stick it onto your channel. That way, I think that's going to help blow your channel up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I do need to do that. It's the problem. Here's the problem. I need to keep the after shows a little bit shorter. Because part of the reason I haven't done that is just the premise of downloading 7 hours of content and then chopping it, and then going through to find it. Take forever. And I need to, but it's laziness, I guess. But you're 100% right. That is something that needs to be done. And the one and only Rebecca, also
Hi.
Life. How are you?
How are you, John? Congratulations.
Thank you. Hey, folks, you need to go check out Rebecca's awesome channel. She's been having some amazing interviews lately with atheists, agnostic, people just all sorts of different backgrounds. And I think she's been trying to give a lot of them, a platform to speak on and kind of air their positions, and also, kind of get different people's perspective. Is that fair to say what you've been doing lately?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. It's been fun.
And she also has another awesome channel, Evaluating Evolution, which is very good too. Some great conversations over there as well.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Well, and thank you for being an awesome member. I mean, Rebecca's been like member, she's been supporter, sent me views. I mean, it's been awesome. So I want to say thanks so much to all the folks that helped me build this channel, because I operate firmly from the position that we can do nothing by ourselves. And even though in an earlier stage of my life, I always felt like that I could accomplish anything by myself and just had to rely on my own personal skills and stuff, I could always, never met a challenge I couldn't defeat. And as you get older, I think some of that Not the
Hey, John,
confidence. Fades.
John, 1 second. Am I the only one that can't hear Rebecca? Or
I can hear.
Yeah, I can hear
maybe
you.
it's just me. I can't hear her talk at all.
Oh,
Rebecca,
weird.
say
sorry.
something?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, nothing.
Okay.
Really? You don't hear Rebecca? I
That's
can hear her
weird.
just fine.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're answering something. I'm like, wait, maybe I'm just not hearing the audio. That's weird. Maybe let me jump off and see if it fixes the
Okay.
problem.
Huh. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever had somebody. Well, Rebecca, I wonder if StreamYard is discriminating against you as a female. Maybe it's secretly misogynistic. And
Hey, Danny.
yeah,
Hey,
maybe
congratulations,
it's just my thing, because now Danny
LPP. Congratulations on the
and
2K.
his picture's not popping up either, and Rebecca's not popping up. Maybe it's mine. I don't know. Let me jump off and
Congratulations,
see if it fixes
LPP.
it.
thanks, Danny. I appreciate you very much. How have you been?
I've been decent. Nothing really new. I've been hanging out with Rebecca.
Yeah, I saw you guys had an
Yep.
interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Oh man, whoa. Woodside $50 super chat. Thank you so much. Just cheers to the after show king. Yeah, somehow I have kind of turned into the after show king. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's good because like there are not a lot of people that will host these sorts of things, and I think that at least for me, like this is like good stuff, you know. Like I feel like in some ways, like a lot of servers, I'm so used to Discord, a lot of channels are like hide behind their premieres, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like I like it when the YouTube owner or whatever, the host, is like open to like conversation, open to open conversation.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I appreciate that. And to be honest, I don't understand why it's not more common.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, why would you? I mean, I guess some of it probably stems from people's, let's just be blunt, their cowardice in not wanting to have something they'll have like 100% control over, And, well, what if somebody says something I don't like? It's like, well, okay, that happens in every conversation. Like, have you never been to a bar before in your life? Like, what's going on
at the
here?
same time, I think we're different. Like everyone here are like we embrace like debate and being either confrontational or aggressive, or I have to keep in mind that people are just not like me. But there's certainly the cowardice level of it. Like I think, yeah, I'm trying to like. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I really like the open forum that you've continued throughout your YouTube career.
Well, thanks. Yeah, like I said, I mean, not just on YouTube. I think in general, I don't know what you guys, the rest of the room thinks about this, but to me, the premise of open conversation, dialogue, back and forth, differences of opinion, and overall discussion, it seems to me has become a extraordinarily lacking aspect of society, whether it be online or otherwise. And obviously, there's stuff like Clubhouse starting to grow and things of that nature, and obviously Discord. But let's be honest, Discord and all those servers and stuff are a minuscule fraction of humanity, right? There's like, yes, those little niche demographics are getting engaged and stuff, but that is not correct me if you guys think I'm wrong on this. What do you guys think? I'll shut up now.
Oh no, you're totally right. Like it's actually a super small world. Like everyone, I feel like, knows each other in this group that wants to talk about these issues, and that's just a testament to the fact that, number one, either people are not interested in these questions, which it seems like that's more than likely the case, or number two, interested but kind of from a distance, like they don't want to be confrontational, but they might hear stuff out. But even then, like it's just a minority of people that actually care about this stuff,
Hey, John, sorry to pull you back to a different topic again. I was thinking, you should probably do with your long videos, chop them up and every week post them the same time. That actually supposedly helps grow your channel pretty quickly.
Right. So you say building up the schedule aspect to it.
Yeah, exactly. That way you get a certain amount of views, I guess, every time it uploads. And if you get a lot of views in the first hour or something like that, that helps promote your channel to other people.
I got you. It's playing into the YouTube algorithm.
Hey, Rebecca. Is Rebecca there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Isn't it past your bedtime? Let me check.
No, it's only 8:48 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, we all know that Rebecca just travels the world. You never know which time zone she's in, so you can't really put her on a specific clock time.
Well, I'm trying to stay put for a while. I don't want to fly across the ocean anymore.
Well, where the world is right now, that's understandable. You might not come back. They might let you in. And the one and only Wesley Coleman is also in the room. What's up, Wesley? How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good. Congratulations, LPP. It's a big accomplishment for you.
Appreciate it. Don't know how I pulled it off, but hey, it happened. How was, I saw you were over at Sal's channel. How was that going? Did Dr. Dan finally show up?
Yeah, he did. They're going over it right now. I'm sort of watching it along a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna have to watch that later to see how Dan, what kind of excuses he comes up with to somehow account for those, what is it, 6,315 or something like that? Exons or exomes?
Yeah, 6,515.
Got it. So, ladies and gentlemen, quick backstory of what we're talking about. A paper has come out recently that basically shows that 6,515 different aspects of, specifically about the human genome, I believe, indicates basically to come into existence within like the last 5 to 10,000 years. And so basically kind of leaning towards for a lot of the.
Oh, they're going to eat that up. They're going to eat that up.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be all sorts of. I mean, let's just be honest, folks. There needs to be. It's not like there's not enough catalysts for dumpster fires on YouTube right now. we need more. I mean, the scientists have just been letting us down and not giving us more and more entertainment to latch onto. So,
well, we could always accuse Rebecca of being a heretic. That's always fun, right? I'm just kidding.
By the way, I actually meant to reach out to you, Rebecca. I saw that and I was rather disturbed, to be blunt.
Oh.
I refused to watch it actually, but when I saw what was going on, I was like, "That is okay." And anyway.
Well, Danny's supposed to be my friend, but he didn't refuse to watch it. He was reveling in it, and then he was trying to drag me into it.
I wanted her to fight them, but she didn't. She would no, I have to stay away from it, and then I would Snapchat all the chat stuff to try to lure her into the conversation. It didn't work.
So you were screenshotting the side chat?
Yeah, I was sending it to Rebecca. Yeah.
Well, we all know
what a good friend.
What a good friend.
We all know that Danny is an instigator. We know this. This is a well-established talent.
Will I be kicked off tonight? Who knows, right? It's just time will tell.
I think I've only kicked you out one time.
Yeah, no, I last pretty long here. But I got kicked out of a Christian stream 2 days ago.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me you got kicked out. I'm just saying that I think there's only been one time I ever kicked you out, and it was 3:00 in the morning, and you admitted that you were being a little weasel at the time. So
I admitted that? Oh, I take it back then.
I got banned from the Turtle Forum.
What's that? What's the Turtle Forum?
That's this thing I used to be on, not anymore though.
Well, they found out that you were smuggling salamanders, and that was just too.
That's why I got banned from the Salamander Forum, though.
Wait, Jackson, are you? I don't think I've ever spoken to you. I've seen you around though. Are you a theist or an atheist? What are you?
No, I'm an atheist.
Oh, you're like me. You just like to hang around.
Yeah. Are you an atheist?
Yeah, I am. But
really?
Yeah, you just like hanging around. These weirdos, right? Is that kind of like the deal?
Yeah, I don't know why I like doing this, but I do.
Yeah. I enjoy.
Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest, gentlemen. Outside of differences of opinion on the fundamentals of our existence, usually theists are more rational and sane about the rest of life than most atheists. especially the ones on YouTube. Let's just be honest.
Well, maybe the YouTube ones, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're an atheist, you're usually a leftist, and so you buy into Marxist ideology and a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So
I have some weird political views, but I'm pretty much centrist when it comes to American politics. But don't get me started on Syrian politics.
Syrian politics? I can't even keep up with American politics. Like you're talking about the country Syria? Like the... Yeah. Okay.
You want to know about Syria?
Like the war-torn country? Like...
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Let me show you something real quick.
I bet Rebecca's been there.
Danny, he said to not get him started.
Oh, okay.
It's your fault.
Now he is getting started.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. You support him?
Yeah, why not?
You know, he probably thinks of him as like Saddam Hussein in the sense that he probably like can tame the region better than like whatever rebel factions that might like sprawl ISIS. Is that kind of the idea, Jackson?
He fights Al Qaeda and ISIS, and he keeps a secular society where Christians and whatever can all live together. That's why I like him.
that's why I like him too. Because if the Muslims get in charge, they'll kill every Christian.
But he himself is an Alawite Muslim. But
no, I understand that.
One of the more tolerant sects.
I've only heard bad things, but I haven't really looked into it. So
why are you just watching the U.S. media?
I just don't really watch any media. It's even worse. I just hear it from people like you, actually, like in the sense that like random people tell me things.
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, I'll put you this way. As I've said, other people heard me say this on streams in the past. I have officially come to the position that it is the unfortunate reality that not the totality of the United States, but the current power brokers of America are actually the villains now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a rather sad day.
Do you sort of agree with him, LPP? Because you look, I know you're into politics. So like, is Jackson on the right track here, or do you disagree with him?
Well, I withhold judgment on this particular point because I don't know that much about it. I see where he's coming from. I could see that being potentially valid. I don't know. I would argue that to support some of these folks, like Saddam Hussein, for example, he kept it stable. Well,
I don't like Saddam Hussein.
Sort of, but then you would also have to look at it from the perspective of we are also responsible for the arming of what became ISIS and all sorts of different things. We didn't do what needed to be done in terms of eradication of those sects, those little subsets. I mean, this goes all the way back to when Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf in the first Gulf War wanted to go all the way to Baghdad. I mean, they were like 30 miles away, and George Bush Sr. Refused to allow him, and Colin Powell, they made him retreat, and we could have solved that problem then. And then you all the way through the 90s, and with Clinton. And Saddam Hussein was like refusing to allow the UN inspectors to come in back then. That's why he randomly got bombed. I grew up on RAF Lakenheath Air Force Base in the UK, and we were constantly sending bombers and planes down there to take care of that stuff. And our planes would leave, and they would be flying over to Germany and going on down and go strike freaking military facilities and stuff in Iraq, and then come back. And same thing with freaking Milosevic. Who was the
Slobodan Milosevic.
Yeah, all that stuff. Like we go over there and bomb Eastern Europe and stuff with Clinton, and it was like all that crap was to like do redirection from his scandals. Like, let's go bomb some people when I'm in the middle of insert scandal for Bill Clinton, and then you fast forward to now. I mean, freaking Joe Biden just deployed 3,000 troops to the Ukraine area.
Yeah,
like he's clearly trying to misdirect from all the crap going on here, as well as, I mean, what are we setting things up to have a war? Like, oh wait, the economy's about to implode. How do we come back from major economic devastations in the past? Oh, you have a war. That's all you need. Like,
that's what presidents do.
Well, not just presidents. I mean, that's been a tactic for a long time. When things get bad, you go, let's have some wars, guys, and we'll get everything going. Because in order to survive, a bunch of people are going to die, but hey, it's no big deal. We'll make some money. Things will get better, and the economies will rebound, and then we'll let things be calm for 20 or 30, 40 years. Then we'll have another one. I mean,
I don't believe Russia's about to invade Ukraine. I think that's a bunch of BS.
I listened to some Russian analysts because I understand Russian, and all of them are saying that Russia does not want war because they already have enough pressure on Europe. Why would they break that hold on Europe?
Yeah.
So they're all saying that there's no reason for Russia to go to war. Plus, half of Ukraine is already Russian. Like, the Russian army can move around. They have the people that are Donetsk. Those people are all under the Russian. They want Russia to get them to join Russia. But Russia's like, no, we don't need you right now. It's like a political, it's a bad move for Russia. So I don't think Russia's going to invade. Personally, there's no reason for it. But I do think that you're right. That they're trying to make this, especially economic crisis, they're trying to figure out a way to blame it on something else, not mismanagement.
Yeah, I mean, it's to your point about the pressure on Europe. I mean, the Germans are doing some of the dumbest things of all time. I mean, seriously, the fact they're shutting down their nuclear power plants in the middle of winter when they already have a shortage, and then they're gonna have some. Nah, we're gonna flip Russia the bird and say, you guys, screw you, Putin. And it's like, yeah, so you guys have literally turned off your nuclear power plants, dumbasses. And it's wintertime, it's cold, and we can just be like, no more natural gas for you. And what are you gonna do about it? You're not gonna be able to yes, could you in next year potentially be able to start importing enough to account for this? And if you want to cut off Russia, okay, sure, maybe, but that's not remotely plausible right now. I mean, there's a reason that there's so much natural gas is currently being shipped from the United States to Europe right now, because the Germans and a couple other members of the EU have been talking this big game towards Russia. It's like, well, anyway.
From what I had heard, Germany's kind of afraid to support Ukraine, though. They sent helmets, and that was it. They wouldn't let a U.S. plane fly through their airspace to deliver, Javelin missiles.
Yeah, and they're blocking also either Norway or somewhere over there. They have some of the German supplies, and they said that you can't sell it to Ukraine because we don't let it. So of course, if Germany starts playing rough with Russia, they shut down their gas. Their whole automotive companies will shut down instantly.
LPP, do you know this guy? There's a lot of drama around him and James White. David Palman. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Do you know who James White is, though, right?
Yeah, he's the Calvinist.
Yeah, so there's this guy that's sort of like an autodidact in theology and epistemology, religious epistemology. And his name is David Palman. He's a really nice guy. But he went on Facebook and wrote this huge post about why this particular theologian named Greg Bonson is overrated or something like that. And James White commented it because James White is some kind of follower of Bonson. And he pointed out that David was just a Dillard salesman in reply to David's criticism of this theologian or whatever. And it's been kind of big drama in that community, but I didn't know if you were familiar with it.
I'm not. And just to be blunt, I usually refuse to engage in those kinds of moronic slugfests of just like, so we're going to sit here and make little tiny jabs at each other, death of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think what was weird about it is that James hurled no insults or anything. He was just making a strict criticism of this theologian. I mean, might have said that his like work was either sloppy or not rigorous or something like that. And then James White replies, "You're just a Dillard salesman." I mean, that's just like kind of low. I don't know.
So that's what James White said to this autodidact.
I think the way that I don't know if he said those words, but what he did was he said something. He said like something that I can get the exact post, but he clipped the you know, on Facebook it shows your work status and your stuff. On David's bio, it shows Dillard's salesman. He clipped it and posted it and say, "Yeah, we shouldn't take this guy seriously," or something like that.
To be honest,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Hey, real quick, Hurricane Havoc, appreciate you coming by. Thanks for being a follower or a subscriber and coming to so many of the shows and always having good side chat conversation. Hope you get a great night's sleep. And thanks so much for helping make all this happen.
So I'm a little bit familiar with James White, and it's just because I follow, what's his name? Leighton Flowers, Dr. Leighton Flowers.
I know who he is too.
Yeah, so I listen to his stuff, and from what I see, that James White has recently became more and more attacking not the substance, but he likes to throw insults around. So I'm not surprised. But I would say that that conversation you guys had, that live stream about Calvinism, I feel so bad that I missed it. I couldn't even listen to it because it was so frustrating.
Yeah, well, the conclusion. Go ahead, Jackson.
What's Calvinism? I still don't know after watching the debate.
So to summarize it as short as possible, take this with a little bit of grain of salt because I am like compressing everything. Their main idea is that God chooses the elect, who is saved and who is lost, and that there is no free will, because if even one molecule is out of God's control, God's not all powerful. So their view is that God controls everything. Yet God is somehow not responsible for evil. So they have like, I don't know, a weird determinist universe, pretty much.
It's kind of a strange position when you put it that way.
They wouldn't say it that way.
Oh.
Because they would couch it in languages of like, well, secondary causes, tertiary causes. God causes you to have desires. So it'd be like this. God created you, and because of the fall, everybody has desires, and we choose the most strongest desire no matter what. Therefore, we have no free will. We will always choose whatever the strongest desire is. And so people that are saved, God changes them to desire God. And whoever God does not change, they can never desire God. So it's like it's a determinist universe, but God then changes the saved to want God, and everybody else just kind of
There's a lot more to it than that, though. Yeah, there's like they have other views about soteriology and
I'm saying
sorts of stuff. Yeah, but everyone specifically hones in on the fact that they're like some kind of they reject indeterminism about human free will or something like that.
Yeah. The reason I even talk about this specific right away is because everything like they have tulip, right? It'd be like total depravity. That means that everybody's so depraved they cannot choose anything but depravity. And then limited atonement. Only God saves a specific group. He only paid for a specific group of people. What's the other one? Total depravity, limited atonement. Or irresistible grace, I think, is one of them. That if God chooses you, you cannot resist him. So they're all tied to the same exact thing. You know, the first one, total depravity. If man is unable to choose God, that's the kind of the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything anyone can do that would warrant hell for eternity. That's just my opinion.
Well,
Agreed.
There's different views on hell. I personally think that it's possible to, deserve hell, let's say that way. And I think the biggest problem is that we don't understand.
Maybe for a set amount of time. For some
yeah, but I think it's based on this. I kind of hold to an interesting view is that people in hell, they will continuously add on to their damnation, which means like if let's say if a Christian or if a person goes to hell, the good stuff that they have, which means like kindness, love, joy, all that stuff they have will be taken away from them, because that is, like the Bible says, that everything good comes from the Father, and then whatever is left of the person will be like a hideous monster. Selfishness, just wickedness, all that stuff that's left will be evil. And so even people in hell, they will continuously do evil or desire evil or whatever. Anyway, but that's just a tangent. What I'm trying to say is that there is different views on hell, specifically in, right now it's getting kind of popular, annihilationism, which means that people that go to hell, they will be destroyed, put to death, something like that. But
if I wind up in hell, I'm gonna say, "Hey, Jesus, I made a mistake," and that instant. And if that doesn't work, I'll just say, "Hey, Satan, can I be a demon and go back to Earth?" That's what I'll do.
The problem is that Satan will be in hell too, and Isaiah, I think, like,
go back to Earth.
No, Isaiah, that says it this way: that they will look on him, and they will be like astonished to say like, "You were the one that made the nations tremble." Like, he'd be such a pitiful creature that. Does that make sense? Because Satan and God isn't a yin and a yang. In the biblical worldview, Satan is just another creature.
Do you believe in eternal conscious torment, Slavic?
I don't, but okay, it depends what you mean by that. I do not.
I mean, do you think that when someone's in hell, they are going to eternally be in torment, pain?
Sort of.
Okay, Rebecca, this guy believes eternal conscious torment. Now it's your turn. Go.
Well, I think eternal conscious torment is something that people often believe because they think there's a lot of biblical support for it. But if you actually really look at what the Bible says, and you look at what the words that have been traditionally translated as hell should not be translated as hell. And when you consider all of the verses that talk about the afterlife, I mean, the destiny of the wicked is death and destruction. The biblical support is greatly in favor of annihilation. Death, destruction, these are the words that are used for the destiny of the wicked. So, there's very little in the Bible to support eternal conscious torment. I have 3 videos on this, and so I highly recommend watching them. Or there's other, I'm not the only person saying this. There's a lot of people, like you said, annihilation is becoming popular, and it should become more popular because I think it is the strongest. It has the strongest biblical support of any position.
I mean, I've listened to a few videos on annihilationism. It's so far I'm not convinced. And the thing is that I don't know if I don't think I hold to the view of hell is like literally fire and people sit there and burn like on shish kebabs. I don't really hold to that specifically. I think mostly it will be people will be in mental or agony. So let's say if I want to drink, and if I can never get a drink, that's going to be really, really painful for me. Or if I wanted to have a, like, a relationship, and then if hell, there is no relationships, because everything good comes from God. And if I don't want, to be with God or to have anything good, therefore, that stuff that I want and I can never have will be that kind of torment.
What do you think is the good support for the idea? Where in the Bible do you get like what you just expressed?
So there's a couple of things that the Lazarus and the rich guy, or no, the beggar and the rich guy, he was asking for a taste of water because it says literally like flames were in there. But another thing is that in the Revelation, there's I can't remember exactly verses, but it says that there will be their smoke will be rising up in front of the angels and like God forever. That's another spot specifically. But it's been a while since I looked into it, so I can't, tell you off the top of my head. Sorry.
Yeah, no, actually, you pulled it out. You pulled out the two top places those are really the only places that support the idea of eternal conscious torment. And then, so if you like contrast those with hundreds of verses that talk about death versus life, rather than heaven versus hell. That's so what I'm saying is like, that's what I meant when I said there's very little biblical support. And in response to the Lazarus parable, it doesn't say that he's being tormented forever. And the main point of that parable is about reward for the person who has suffered, the poor person who has suffered, and punishment for the rich person who didn't care about the poor person. So I don't know if it's the main point of the parable is to teach us about the nature of the afterlife, but and then in Revelation, there's a lot of symbolic imagery in Revelation. You've got Jesus looking like he's got a sword coming out of his mouth, and nobody I know thinks that they're going to have to like watch out for the sword when they hug Jesus, but it says he's got a double-edged sword coming out of his mouth. So Revelation is really also not a good place to take and like to take very literally to learn about the nature of the afterlife. So I think there's, like I said, hundreds of clear verses that talk about the afterlife and that the destiny of the wicked is death. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. So the contrast is over 90 times in the New Testament, life, eternal life versus death.
No, I understand what you're saying, but just because that verse says that they're going to burn forever in front of the Lamb and the angels, right? If it's even if it's like a symbology, right? It doesn't mean that the opposite can be true. Like if the verse actually means the opposite, that they're not going to burn forever, well, then it's a weird parody. It's like, how can you understand anything if it becomes the opposite? That's one of my critiques on that specific idea. Because I've heard this idea, not even just about eternal but different parts of the Bible. But specifically, what is the most strongest view or verses, excuse me, that show that, annihilationism is real?
Well, like I said, it's probably couple hundred. And I mean, I do have a chart that I made up of at least all the verses in the New Testament that talk about it. And there's 90 that are, life versus death. There's 100 that talk about the afterlife being entering the kingdom of God versus not entering the kingdom of God. But there's, there's not, you pulled out the only two places that could support the eternal conscious torment. And I don't think they do a good job of supporting it when we consider all the other verses. And I haven't even listed out the ones in the Old Testament that talk about the destiny of the wicked being death. And there's many of those. Hi, Rob.
Good day, Rebecca. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, so I think.
Hey, Rob.
So I think we need to have a poll.
Danny boy.
Because I think that Danny is trying to be a fire starter, is what I think.
I was hoping that she did it, right? Rebecca started with her ETC stuff, right? And then I was waiting for people to attack her in chat, and then I attacked those people.
Oh, okay, so you're not even having the generosity to start the dumpster fire with the panel. You want to start a dumpster fire in the side chat.
Well, everyone's being too nice to her here.
Danny, that's just lazy, Danny.
Do you want to be mean to her? Then I'll attack you.
It's very ballsy of Danny.
Well, Danny is, Danny's Danny. Yeah, to the point that Rebecca was making, I mean, I think there's a lot to contemplate in all of things she was mentioning, and there are a plethora of different verses that would seem to issue contradiction, and we also don't know what the concept of time is, right? So is time going to continue in the same manner in which we currently experience it or not, right? So for an ever and ever could have a different context in the eternal realm, if you will, than the way we view it. So there's no telling what that if there's some kind of different aspect of what the frame of reference would be, I guess. Yeah, what's up, Jackson?
If you have like a sped up version of time in an eternity, but that's still an eternity, I don't know if that's what you're saying or not. I don't think it is, but
no, I'm saying that if we're currently operating from our frame of reference has time in it, right? So if you're trying to explain something, it would something like forever and ever, right? Well, we only know things from the temporal frame of reference. So, but my point is that if our current frame of reference, let's say that's not how things always are or always will be, right? Then it's not that what was said wouldn't necessarily be true. It just could be from a different perspective, I guess. And I think the vast majority of people are not arrogant enough to say that we even have the capacity right now to understand what the premise of eternal existence even means anyway. Like, we've never experienced that, so we can't actually have we can have our suppositions, but we don't actually have definitive understanding of what that is. And then I think when you really look into like the near death experiences and all that research that's been going on, and all these people trying to explain that frame of reference, how it was so different, and time still seemed to exist, but in a much different sense. All those kind of things. Part of the reason where I'm saying what I'm saying now. But oh man, what's up, Leo Phileas in the house? What's up, man? How you doing? Long time.
How is it going?
Hanging in there. We all knew. Listen, we all know that the second that anything to do with time, atemporal, models of time, that Leo Phileas cannot avoid hopping on that conversation.
I have to be honest. I do generally agree with that. But the reason that I'm here is actually because I need to apologize to Rob, because the last time that I saw him was actually on this channel, and I'm sure he remembers.
What? Apologize to me?
And
you and I always got along.
I know, but you had been in a discussion explaining something, and then I had come in, and I was very dismissive of you trying to give context to the discussion that had been going on, because my mind was set on addressing what the topic of that discussion was, and I wanted to apologize for that, because I should not have been that dismissive.
I honestly don't even remember.
Anyway, I wanted to do that because I wanted to apologize. I needed to get that out there. Anyway,
I accept your apology, Leo.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, Danny.
So what we have just witnessed is proof beyond all doubt that the human conscience exists. And Leophilius has actually been feeling a great amount of guilt for a long time.
Very much so.
Rob has been just heaping coals of fire on his head for months and months, and now it's finally come to where he has.
Now I feel bad.
He has been
Leophilius,
convicted.
Please.
He's been convicted that he must come, and so Leophilius.
I shall give him a bottle of scotch. To hopefully that'll make you feel better. So.
Well,
that's if you drink scotch.
He doesn't need scotch. You just need to give him a beer, and he'll be fine.
I'll do scotch. No, I'd rather scotch over beer. I just don't like spending the amount of money I have to on scotch where I live. But yeah, I'm actually in a pretty good mood, because Godless Granny had GE, Godless Engineer, on her channel earlier today talking about the historical Jesus. And
LPP loves that guy.
Well, I mean, I do actually. GE does strike me as the kind of guy I could go out and have a beer with. You know, I could go have a drink with that guy, but his and I'm not trying to derail any conversations that we're having.
It is not a code. It's a chemical. It's deoxyribonucleic acid.
Wait,
it's an acid. I don't understand why you think it's a code. DNA is no more of a code than Diet Coke and regular Coke.
But I do have to say, his takes on the historical Jesus are they're cringe. They're cringe. He's kind of like a Richard Carrier puppet.
There is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who doubts that Jesus existed.
And today I'm going to be presenting my argument for why Jesus probably didn't exist. So first, what exactly is mythicism? Mythicism is the hypothesis that Jesus did not exist in history.
All right, YouTube, it's time to investigate some reasons why the figure called Jesus, the historical figure of Jesus, probably didn't actually exist.
A mythical man. Mythical man was the name of the speech. The description was, I think that there is at least one, and here's the problem, it's not just one historical guy. We know that on the mythical aspect, that the story of Jesus is based on, among other things, Dionysus, right, and Prometheus. I mean,
No! Do I believe Jesus existed? This is a tough question for me, because I'll admit I haven't studied it that much, and I have a lot of atheist friends who are scholars, and they have studied this for a long time, and even atheists who study this subject are divided. They don't know, they all don't believe he was like resurrected, but they disagree on whether an actual Jesus existed or whether that was like a figment of some people's imagination, that they created him.
It's not a question that's debated among scholars.
Shut up!
Most scholars simply don't even think it's worth debating because of the overwhelming evidence.
Shut up!
And so I'll tell you what I think needs to happen. If people really want to keep pursuing the mythicist issue, I personally think it's a mistake to pursue the issue. I think that there might be better avenues to take for people interested in these things. But if you desperately want to pursue the mythicist issue, the only way it's ever going to be taken seriously in the academy is by people establishing their credentials in the academy. It is not, I know in the crowds you all run around with, it's commonly thought that Jesus did not exist. Let me tell you, once you get outside of your conclave, there's nobody who, this is not even an issue for scholars of antiquity. It is not an issue for scholars of antiquity. There is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who teaches classics, ancient history, New Testament, early Christianity, any related field who doubts that Jesus existed. There is no...
That was fucking beautiful. I'm sorry.
That shut up at the end. That was good.
So as I always say, I say the same thing in relation to the abiogenesis discussions, evolution, all those arguments. It's like we can come to different conclusions on, a variety of aspects of these different, talking points. But for crying out loud, folks, can we at least start from like a very basic, like rational position of like, I don't know. We literally do our calendars based on the pretty close, at least, maybe 3 years off, date of birth of the guy, right? Like, you telling me that all this stuff just based on freaking Prometheus and Dionysus? Really? Oh, I tell you what, those guys, it's...
The arguments in favor of the position are just poor. We always hear, well, there aren't any contemporary references. Well, why should there be? One of the biggest fallacies I think that's committed is that people think that the popularity and the general knowledge that people have of Jesus today, at least in, I don't want to limit it to just the Western world, but broadly to the developed or semi-developed world, people know about Christianity, they've heard of Jesus. That wouldn't have been the case 20 years after his crucifixion. So the idea that we should expect there to have been the popularity that he has today and thereby the references to that is just a faulty premise to even begin from. And that's one of everybody says, well, there's no contemporary. I'm always like, well, why should we expect that?
Tyler, is that you?
Rob, you're the reason I came. I saw you and I was like, I haven't spoken to Rob in so long.
I haven't spoken to you in so long either. I haven't been on streams for a while myself. This is the second stream I've been on since the start of the year. So good to see you, man. God bless you.
Both been mine, Rob. Are you trying to boost my ego over here, man? You've only been on 2 streams in the new year.
And I'm just bringing people onto your show, man.
Well, appreciate it. What's up, Tyler? Welcome to the stream. I saw your I've been watching a couple of your debates. I've been watching debates for a while, but I saw your most recent one. It's very interesting. Appreciate you always bringing a good argument.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I didn't mean to derail the conversation. I just wanted to come say hi to Rob.
No, I'm just kind of like, whoa, it's Tyler.
Rob and I go way back to like the Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
The Council of Google.
Good old days, the golden age.
Golden age. We're old dogs now.
Man, that was 7 years ago. Bloody hell. Yeah.
Anyways, keep going. Jesus myths.
Oh my! You know that you're getting old when you can remember back to Google Hangouts. It's going
those are the.
I remember having these conversations on like MySpace and Rusty Line and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'd tell you the thing that made me start to feel old was when I saw that the day to buy beer you could have been born in the new millennium.
Yep.
And be old enough to drink. I was like, okay. Yep, I'm old now. That's
some of us were born in the 1900s.
Yep. It's very true.
So just so if anyone is unfamiliar, but Tyler is a fantastic scholar in his own right, and he's debated Aaron Ra and done a few. I think you run a podcast, don't you? The Free Thinker podcast and
YouTube channel.
Yeah. Even though I disagreed with that Calvinist bunch at the Council of Google Plus days, but Tyler pretty much, he. Are
you saying that Tyler is a Calvinist?
It's true.
I personally don't know about that, but all I do know is he was very approachable and sort of like wanted them to elevate their sophistication about how to engage the Bible, like scholarly wise, and so yeah.
Hey, Leo.
Always had a good impression of Tyler since.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Did you debate Ken Hovind? Is that
I
you?
did.
I didn't
No.
see that one, but I saw your name on there. How did you think you do? You did.
I think I did exceptional.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
You have debated him 4 times, and I think the first 2 times I did just kind of all right. The 2 last times I think I did pretty good, but it's hard to tell yourself, you know.
Mm-hmm. I for me, judging debates, very rarely will I judge it on a win-lose basis.
Yeah.
Merely because, to me, win-lose is dependent on a large variety of variables.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I don't know how many people here would have seen it, but the debate that Apostate Prophet had with I can't remember his name. He was a younger man. It was on Modern Day Debate. I think it was last week at some point. I don't think he did very well at all. I think that the way that he approached the arguments that the young man was presenting was just not. I guess I can say it's not the way that I would have approached a debate on, like, you know, atheism versus theism or something along those lines. I guess that's what I can say.
The Apostate Prophet is not a good debater.
I don't think he is either. I put him and Godless Engineer in the same category where, look, I think they're good guys. Like, I don't think they're like terrible people or anything, him and Godless Engineer, but I put them in the same category in that I've seen, at least for Godless Engineer, some of his edited content. And for me, you know, I'll be honest, I do like a lot of it, but naturally I'm an atheist. He's an atheist. I'm going to like some of his content. But his debate, I don't think it's the greatest. And, you know, I'm not making like a moral judgment about him. I'm not making, you know, a character judgment about him. I just don't think that he's the greatest debater out there. And I put AP in the same category.
Yeah, but, you know, AP is like, created this alliance with Christians against the Muslim apologists.
I guess I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, like he's been like I think he and David Wood. Yeah, they have a bromance. Like Apostate Prophet really has a thing against Muslim apologists, but he doesn't have that same animosity towards Christian apologists.
Well, people are a product of their culture. I'm not surprised by that.
Maybe it's because the Christians are not running around talking about how they're going to assassinate him. I mean, there's that.
Could possibly be the case, yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, he's literally running the risk of being assassinated,
Bob.
So it's a little bit different context.
Yeah, that's something that I've always thought was a little interesting. You know, it's like, yeah, I used to be an ex-Muslim. Yeah, you should be, you know, like burned alive in a cage, doused in gasoline. That's what should happen to you. I think MDD is actually going to host a debate on should ex-Muslims be punished. I don't think it already happened, but maybe it did.
Talk about a guaranteed dumpster fire.
And I think it was Apostate. Let me see. Yeah, should ex-Muslims be punished? Apostate Prophet versus Khalid. I don't know who this Khalid is, but that's gonna. Woo. That is. Oh,
okay. So sidebar, guys, on this topic.
5th of this month.
So the other day I was on Clubhouse, and I kid you not, there was a room with the subject of when did punishing wives become domestic abuse? And I could not resist. I'm like, I have got to hear what this is. And I go in there, and it was all these Muslim dudes talking, like bitching and moaning about how they were no longer allowed to beat their wives in Western countries. And then and then at one point, so I was just like listening, like I am actually listening to this right now. This is actually happening. And then I kid you not, they had a whole segment where they were going back and forth going in turns to talk about their best tactics for disciplining their wives and getting them to behave.
Man, that's the best part of Islam.
I was like, I am actually listening to this right now. And one guy's like, no. You always want to use the inside of your palm, not the back fist. I'm like, the marks go away faster on this guy. I'm like, if this wasn't actually happening and they're being serious, it would be like the ultimate spoof, like an SNL skit, right? But no, this was actually being discussed in real time of really trying to gain knowledge from each other and how they can teach their lives, basically.
Did you guys see the debate on, I think it was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha? I think it was at the MDD conference, but I'm not sure.
I was about to ask that question as well.
That was...
David Wood did a fantastic job on that, to be honest.
I think so, yeah. That was, I was like, good on you, mate. That was something else when I was watching.
And you know what's ironic? Muhammad Hijab last week at Speaker's Corner in London. So you have what's called Quran-only Muslims, and in fact that happened in the debate.
That's Quranist, isn't it?
Yeah, so Quran-only Muslims, remember the debate during the Q&A, there was I think it was a Muslim that actually went to the mic and asked Kenny, hey, basically, in other words, he said, do you deny the hadith? Are you like a Quran only? And then the interesting thing is you can't be Quran only, because if you stick with the Quran only, the Surah 65 verse 4 verse is ambiguous. And so then Muhammad Hijab publicly went, hey, the verse says prepubescent girls are a way of, So in other words, it was affirming what David Wood was saying, and then Apostate Prophet ran with it, and it's like, hey, check.
Muhammad Hijab is probably the most toxic apologist I've ever encountered. I'm trying to think of someone more toxic. Yeah. Who is more toxic than Muhammad Hijab?
But in other words, it's coming out of the horse's mouth. So.
Do you know him, Leo?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that guy's nuts.
Yeah, but the crazy part about it is in the West, here in the United States, even if you make fun of Christians, everybody's like, "Yeah, go." And if you make fun of Muslims, most people are like, "Oh, don't you gotta be a really don't make them mad," or something like that. I don't know how that works.
Well, some of that also stems from
it's a spoiled child,
abject terror. But hey, real quick, what's up? Argatha's left now. Oh, is he there? There he is. What's up, Bob? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. Man.
Hey, I'm fine. I was about to try my laptop because I got muted twice, and I'm thinking, do I have background noise?
No, not at all. At least I haven't heard it.
I only muted you once, actually. There was a little bit of echo there for a second, but then I muted it. That was what it was. But you're good, man.
And I just have audio trouble all the time. I don't understand. I hopped in. I saw you were live, and it was just kind of an open discussion. Didn't really seem like it had a topic, so I figured, what are you guys talking about?
Well, we never know where it may go. I mean, hey, it's only 10:41, so
the Muslim
a few things. Jackson's they're trying to trigger us with
LPP. Wait, hold on. I have a quick question.
We went 7 hours on your prior stream, LPP. That was amazing.
I know. I woke up the next morning and I saw that. I was like, I wonder how long they went. And it was like 7 hours and 41 minutes, something like that. I was like,
it turned out quite fruitful. Wesley and I were going back and forth on Psalm 104. So
you were talking about the Muslim men talking about how they discipline their wives. I think what came to my mind is I think one of the great distinctions between the two religions is they don't have a verse that says God is love.
I can see that. And there's that. Well, let's just be honest. There is many, many, many aspects of Islam that are either direct antithesis or major, major alterations to concepts that Christians take for granted.
I'm going to have to look for the video. But I was watching some dude's, I think it was a sermon, and he walked through a number of beliefs. So Islam has they have an eschatology. If you're not particularly religious, you probably don't know what eschatology means. It's knowledge of end times.
Yep.
Muslims have that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so interesting. I'll try to find the link and try to post it, but the description, all of the different things that this I can't remember what he's called, the Mahdi or something like that, everything that the Muslim hero is supposed to do in the end times is what the Antichrist does according to Christianity. And I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, you're very correct. I read a pretty interesting book like 4 or 5 years ago on that exact topic. It was rather eye-opening how many different yin to the yang type of concepts there were.
I don't know anything about Islamic theology because it's one of, if not the most boring thing I have ever attempted to try to learn, and I still don't know anything about it because it's so fucking boring.
Well, you know, I don't agree with Islam, and I think there's some pretty convincing evidence for why it's not true, but I wouldn't base my discovery of truth on whether or not it's entertaining.
Well, no, I'm not saying whether or not it's true. I'm just saying I find Islamic theology boring. It could be true. I'm just saying that Islamic theology is boring. Christian theology, I don't. It could be my bias. Look, I was born and raised in the United States of America. I was a Catholic. I know some people will probably take issue with me saying that Catholics are Christians, but I'm sorry, they are. So I probably have a bias, but I find Christian theology to be a little bit more rich.
And also, Bob, you might think theism is false, and so you don't have to worry about Islamic theology.
Well, yeah, I get nothing but a mission. It's like someone put Jewish scriptures, Christian scriptures, church father material, Gnostic texts, all in a blender, and out popped the Quran.
Yes.
But then not only did it pop out, but then it was then strained, so it became like this very like skeletal version of a weird mishmash of just nonsense. That's the Quran in a nutshell.
So you say that I want to address Danny's point if I can. Because I think I get it, right?
Hold on. Jackson, what was that? What was that stick figure?
It was Muhammad.
I get the joke. I see what you did there.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
I get the idea that if you've come to the conclusion that atheism is true, then you are less likely to consider other views. But I get that that's how people operate. But I don't think it's necessarily wise. If you have come to the conclusion that, okay, this is true, but you don't know a lot, like, Leo admitted, I don't know a lot about Muslim stuff. Well, maybe that's something that you should look into because, what if they're right? Because I think it's always a good thing to have in reserve in the back of your mind.
Have you looked into weird mythologies, like Native American mythology or? Do you think you should?
I know a little bit about it. I've never encountered somebody that fights for it. Maybe that's.
What I heard Leo think, like his statement was equivalent to like, I'm not interested in Norse mythology. It's boring. I'd rather do Egyptian mythology. That's what that's kind of what I'm hearing from Leo.
Christian and Greek are my two, those ones I like. Norse is interesting. Is Islamic theology is just fucking boring. I find
Greek mythology is really interesting.
It is. I find Judaistic, Jewish theology to be rather boring as well, to be completely honest.
So what you're trying to say
is it because there's only one?
Well, no, I look at it and I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't capture me. I'm not getting into it.
I'm just thinking maybe Christian theology fight with words, and then Muslim theology fight with guns.
Let me demonstrate to the audience. Let me translate for you what Leo's getting at. This is a Middle Assyrian Omen text, okay, in the ancient Near East. You guys ready?
No.
I'm sharing.
No. Okay, yeah, sure.
Danny will love this. If a man dreams he kisses his penis, what he says will find acceptance. What he desires will not be withheld from him. Now, according to your
kiss your dick Bob, and your wishes will come true.
This is a superstition, and you're suggesting that no one on planet Earth, generally speaking, except for those, like for example, Tyler.
Or neuromancy.
What is this from?
This is in the category of the Akkadian canonical composition under divination by Mesopotamian omens. And it's like, this is so ridiculous. Why? I mean, you literally just said, what if it's true? Well, okay. Then let's just go wholesale into understanding Mesopotamian omen texts, and then maybe they could be true. That argument just doesn't follow.
I did want to say
one thing really quickly. I think it does follow. Christianity stands very strongly on evidential claims.
Then we need to study Akkadian texts like for the next year and make a thorough investigation whether it's true or not.
I wonder if
I would preface it with a secondary argument. This is an ancient religion, correct?
Isn't Christianity an ancient religion?
Sorry. This is an ancient religion that has not prevailed through time. This is my idea, is that if there was a true God and there was a true way, then that God who desires people, presumably, to follow that way would persist through time. If it's some ancient religion that died out,
do you think God's infallible?
Wait, hold on, Danny. Danny, no, stop. Me, no, not you, me.
What?
Stop it.
I'm just asking, Bob. Do you think God's infallible?
What do you think? What do you mean by fallible?
Okay.
Can he fail? Can he not succeed?
Fuck you, Danny. You know what? Fuck you. Okay.
Okay, language. But Danny, I would say that God wants all people to repent, but not all people repent. He wants all to be saved, but not all people turn and believe the gospel and trust God and be saved. And in that sense, I guess you could count that as a failure.
He's just trying to start the Calvinist debate. Danny, I see where you're going. You tried to do eternal annihilism, didn't work, so let's do something else.
I mean, listen, Rob just shared language about kissing your penis. So there's obviously a need for for some kind of spin-off of that one because, let's just be honest. We all know that Danny has thought about that many times in his dreams.
Guilty of charge. But the point is that Bob, that if you're
Danny,
saying
check your Discord.
I will.
I totally that one rocked Danny right there. He got him.
I had a dream I had 4 penises one time. What does that mean?
Oh my gosh, Tyler, check the private chat.
Okay, we are not going to go down this rabbit hole.
What if it's a wormhole?
Hey, do you want me to show another one? I have plenty of these quotes in that text.
Do you understand what I'm saying though? Like, if a religion is true, it seems reasonable that it would be, if not prominent, at least there would still be people running around following it today.
Yeah, and welcome to Human Psychology 101.
Isn't that?
What do you mean?
Doesn't that almost border on a argumentum ad populum, though? That because something is popular, therefore it's more likely to be true.
Yeah, that's why I stated that it doesn't necessarily have to be the most popular, but if it's true, it should survive.
So you're saying something more like that. Not that because it's popular, it's true, but if it's true, it being popular is something we may expect.
May expect, yes, but I wouldn't say necessarily that it would be popular. In fact, a lot of the Bible states pretty clearly that if you follow this way, you're not going to be popular. What I'm saying is, okay, let's take this hypothesis that there is a God. He created stuff, created everything, created some things, whatever. There's this being, and he wants people. He has power over people or whatever, and he wants people to follow a certain path. And he gives that information out. All right, so I'm giving a lot of ifs, and I'll grant that. But if that were true, if there was a religion, that's basically what I'm getting at. If there was a religion that was true, that was real, it seems reasonable to me that it would never completely die out if presumably that God cared, which the fact that he would, present some religion or something in the first place, I think that would mean that he would care. So I think it's reasonable to assume that if there is a religion that's true, it's likely going to be one of the ones that exists today in some form.
Okay.
Not necessarily, because you could say, well, okay, the Catholic Church is the dominant religion, so that's probably the right one. Well, the Muslim religion is growing every day, and they're catching up with Christians, so maybe that's the right one. That's not what I'm saying. It's like you can look at all of the ones that are growing or fading, all of the ones that have some sort of impact on culture, and say, okay, one of these is probably the right one because they survived. So then which one of those is it?
But I think that's the presupposition, is that like a true belief is more likely to be held, given that truth has a tendency to persist. But I don't know if I accept that principle. It seems like false beliefs can get you very far.
Let's say it's a religion that died out. How would you go about finding? Okay, so ancient Babylonian mythology. If you had the suspicion that, okay, my argument does not hold out, then you would go and seek after all of the other ancient religions that had died out. How would you determine which of those may be valid?
How do you determine whether a past religion is true or false?
Yeah.
Well, you have to have a concept of the religion, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay.
You have to understand it in some fashion.
And so then you can test for coherence. So that doesn't require a lot. That just depends on whatever your concept.
Well, does a religion necessarily have to be coherent?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say something really quickly, because I think Danny is getting onto something pretty important, that if we're going to determine something is true, there's going to be a set of virtues we're going to expect that ideology or that ideal to have, given that it is true. And I do think that coherence is one of those.
Yeah, because if it's incoherent, like if they worship the triangle who's with 5 sides, then I'm immediately going to dismiss it, right? Like I think it's just incoherent, right?
By the way, guys, I'm gonna head up.
Bye, Rob.
See ya, Rob.
God bless.
See ya, Rob.
Hey, so
Bye,
you
Rob.
see what just
God
happened there?
bless.
Rebecca's been quiet for like the last 30 minutes. Rob says he's
has.
leaving, and she's like, "Bye, Rob." I see what's up. I see what's up, Rebecca. The rest of us aren't worthy of interaction. Okay.
No, you guys are. This is an interesting conversation. I'm going.
I am blushing right now.
And this is why I like Bob, because he brings interesting discussions when he comes on. I got to be honest.
Yeah, true.
I got a quick question besides that, if it's true or not, how to find it true. I was thinking, because I can't take off my theological worldview, I can only act like I can take it off, like imagine it, but I can't actually step over that line. I was wondering to ask people that are atheists, if they saw a man described like in the Bible, like the Antichrist, right? The biblical way of Antichrist, if they saw that happening in the world, a man that gets into power, that sets up that system that you can't buy or sell, would that be a point toward Christianity being true, or would that just be like, it's a coincidence?
For me, it would depend. Is there a way that such a scenario could happen where it would not represent what's happening as described by the Bible?
Wait, what? Can you say that again, Leo?
So he's presenting some scenario, and he's saying, would this scenario X be evidence for this text Z that says that scenario X will happen? And I would say that, well, that depends. Can we establish an instance where you could have scenario X where you may not have text Z predicting it?
Well, I think it's necessarily true that any situation could potentially come about without any text having to say that it would come about. I don't.
So then the point would be
to make any sense.
Well, the point would be then, how do we differentiate from this just being a thing that's happening as a result of things happening in the world versus it's happening because the text predicted it? How would we differentiate between those if the event could happen independently of the text predicting it?
I think a better way of looking at it. So I wouldn't say that this happened because the text predicted it. I would say the text predicted it and then it happened. Doesn't that give validity to the predictions that it's made? It's made predictions in the past, just saying.
I understand what you're saying. I think what you mean is how specific can we get before it says improbable, right? Like how specific can we get to be like, all right, this is definitely that text talking about it before, or it's like, oh, it's a general thing.
Who was the one who asked the question originally?
I did.
Me. Wait, which question?
Someone asked Leo. I don't know if he was asking Leo specifically. Who?
Yeah, I was asking specifically on from an atheist point of view, if someone that fills in the biblical view of the Antichrist, if somebody came to power like that, which means he would have to go against Christians. He would 3.5 years of his power, he would have to be preaching peace, even though he's against peace. And then he has to set up a world system that if you do not participate in, you can't buy or sell. And then 3.5 years later, that they would kill anybody that would not, not bow down.
More than that, because there were 10 crowns on the head of the beast, right? And then I'm a little fuzzy on my eschatology. The Antichrist, I think, slays 3 of them, and then he sprouts up from it. I'm getting it confused.
They represent. There are 10 horns. They represent 10 nations. 3 of the nations retaliate, and the Antichrist defeats them and unites the 10 nations.
So you have these symbols, right? So, like, if I were to, I'm gonna
That's in Daniel,
try to stop correcting or throwing out I'm misinterpreting or misremembering. You've got a beast in this ancient text that says it has 7 heads and 10 horns, and 3 of those heads is going to be destroyed, and then from those 3 heads another head grows. So if you understand, if the text says, because it does, what the crowns are and what the horns are and what the heads are, you understand that there's going to be 7 nations. There are going to be 10 kings within those 7 nations. 3 of the kingdoms are going to be destroyed, and a kingdom will sprout up from that. And then from that kingdom, I'm making up stuff because I don't remember the exact delineation that's given in Revelation. I have to refresh myself. From that, you have this person that rises up, and he takes over all of the 10 kingdoms. From those 3 kingdoms that developed the kingdom, he then takes over these kingdoms, and he becomes the world leader. And he said, like, all of these details, because my numbers are wrong, but that kind of detail exists. If you see those order of events that goes boom, 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 and you see, wow, this is what Revelation said would happen, what would you think? Just those details that I mentioned.
I think Tyler has something to say about that.
I wasn't going to say much because I don't want to derail the conversation in an eschatology conversation. It just it's just a reminder that there are a lot of people who just don't read the Book of Revelation as a futurist text.
No, I understand that for sure.
Yeah, so if you read Beale, Hendrickson, anyone like that, you're reading Revelation. That reading as this like future that's going to fulfill prophecy in these very specific ways.
Are you a Christian?
I am. Okay. I'm just, and I'm not trying to, get in the way and say like, here's the feature that the atheist could use or anything like that.
No accusations. I'm just seeking clarity. So, are you a preterist or something?
I'm millennial.
Okay.
I don't typically go into like preterist, non-preterist camps because I think that I would follow something along with like what Beale or Hendrickson would view, which is that the
most of Revelation happened in AD 70.
That a lot of it happened earlier, but that the cyclical nature of it is actually a textual feature, not necessarily a historical feature. Yeah. So again, I just wanted, it's an interesting side discussion in the chat. I didn't want to derail the flow of thought that you all had, but I don't think that the argument you would give would work if you had, if Leo was like, well, you need to convince me first that in order to believe that prophecy is something that is how I should actually understand. Like the argument is already freighted with a certain assumption for how we should understand the book of Revelation.
Okay, well, with respect to the beast, I think it's clear that the heads represent nations and the horns represent kings, right?
I have an idea.
I mean, that's what it says.
You said the 3 nations would be slayed or something?
I was kind of making stuff up. I know the amount of detail that I listed is in there, but I have the details wrong. I know that because it's been a while since I read Revelation.
Well, I know it centers around Israel, and they defeated Jordan, Syria, and Egypt. So that could be something. I don't know. I mean, I don't even believe it. I'm just saying that could be an interpretation.
Well, I don't think Israel is personally, I don't think Israel makes sense for it to be the beast. Yeah. The beast seems to be something external to Israel because the beast attacks Israel.
We all know the beast is the Pope. Come on.
The Antichrist is the Pope.
So the reason I'm saying this is not specifically to argue about which eschatology is actually correct. I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out and gauge from an atheist worldview how
adamantly would he disbelieve?
Yeah. How much information you would have to see correct before you say like, oh yeah, that's definitely.
You see, I think that the more interesting question is what should convince you rather than what would convince you.
That's kind of the question I was doing in a roundabout way.
And that was the point that I was getting at, is that like, if you're saying that there's something that happens in this text that predicts it, are there expectations we have external to those texts that would predict those events happening? Like, how do we establish these events happening and the expectations under which, or the conditions under which they would happen? And how do we reference that with any text that have supposedly predicted them? Because if I said tomorrow somebody is going to walk down the street and get on the, if somebody walks down the street, and if I predicted that tomorrow in New York City, there is going to be somebody who walks 15 feet down the street and then gets on the bus to go somewhere, I guarantee you that somewhere in New York, that is a thing that will happen. So the fact that I have predicted it doesn't really mean anything. Given if I said somewhere tomorrow it will rain on Earth, is that really profound? I mean, so this goes down to whether or not the thing that's supposedly being predicted is something that we would expect under some set of conditions or otherwise, and how that text relates to those conditions.
Is the prediction of the text significantly improbable? Is that what you're suggesting?
It's a little bit more complicated than that. It's more, what conditions under which would we expect these events to occur, and how does this text that's supposedly predicting this relate to those?
Well, I think I mean I could play devil's advocate on the side of the atheist and ramp it up even more, and then I'll give a rejoinder afterwards that I think actually is a problem for the atheist. But I mean, like in apologetics, if you think of like Michael Kona and others, and we're talking about biblical reliability and all that kind of stuff, and they'll to overcome certain objections, they'll be like, look, just because a literary text and a historical text like line up on a lot of details doesn't mean that there's borrowing, right? So you use example of what's it called, like travesty. It's like the book that came out like 50 years before the Titanic, and it was like exacting in details of what it was. Or there was I think it was a book that was like 70 years or something before 9/11, and it was like the tallest tower in New York, simultaneous plane crash on like the head of the military building, and it got the floor right, it got the time of day, it got all this kind of stuff. Or the atheist can look at that and be like, look, just because you have a book in Revelation that describes these things, even if it's sufficiently detailed enough, like nobody thinks that these books were like divinely inspired and so they match up with history, right? And so
I'd look into it.
What's that?
I'd look into it.
But I think that I think they would have somewhat of a valid point of saying there seems to be these other things where we wouldn't necessarily say just because it narratively matches up on all these details I disagree. That would show that it's divine. That's divinely inspired. No, right? I mean,
I would say, okay, let me put it this way. If something says these things are going to happen, even if it's just like a fiction novel and it's just a story, and then those events in very specific detail, if not exact, but very specific detail, line up later on after that novel has been written, I would wonder about how they got their information. Wouldn't you?
Yes, but is there any reason to think that? So let's grant that there's something that happens like 1,000 years before some event that near perfectly predicts that event happening in that location at that time in that way. Why should we think that there's something supernatural involved with this?
Yeah. So
I would say that that's odd, and I would wonder how did they know? Was it a lucky guess? And how can I tell between the two?
So would I, and that's why I asked the question. Why should I immediately think that this is something supernatural?
I wouldn't say that you should. I would say those three questions, right? How did they know? Or is it coincidence? And how do I tell between the two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I think this is where this is where my real question would come up, because I think, Leo, I think can use those examples that I gave and say, well, even if we don't know, it's possible it's coincidence. Why should he said it himself. Why should I jump to the conclusion that it's supernatural, or, to parrot kind of a new atheist, why should I jump to the conclusion that an invisible sky daddy told someone what was going to happen in the future? Right? I'm not saying that's a good argument, but I'm saying that tends to be the recourse. The thing that I would look back at Leo, and I brought this up in my debate with Matt Dillahunty and Tom Jump and others, is that my question generally comes down to, if you hold a certain type of naturalistic epistemology, I'm not sure that it's ever falsifiable, right? So because you could the certain type of naturalistic epistemology that's going to say, look, I have to be demonstrated that God exists before I can resort to God as an explanation, as even a possible explanation for something, or that natural things occurring are just intrinsically more probable than supernatural ones. So that really any natural explanation is just intrinsically more probable than God did it. And I always have the recourse of, well, I don't know, but since a natural explanation is intrinsically more probable and science has been marching on and kicking God out of explanations and yada, 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 and that whole thing, then I'm more it's more epistemically honest for me to say, I don't know, but hopefully science will figure it out one day. I'd rather suspend belief than say a sky daddy did it. Right?
But one of the big problems is that non-natural entities don't generate predictions, whereas natural ones do.
But that's exactly my point, right? So my general pushback is, if that's your epistemology, right? If for the naturalist at this point, I'm just going to ask, okay, but then you have to be honest then and say, at that point, procedurally, nothing could falsify your worldview. Then at that point,
well, I'm not a naturalist. I'm not a naturalist.
I don't mean you. I mean the person who holds you in the royal.
But you're talking about atheism, right? So I just think that's a conflation with atheism and naturalism.
No, I didn't say atheism.
It's just not okay. Well, then as atheist,
but Danny,
I think that Venn diagram is there maybe is a sliver of outside. Atheists tend to fall in this by and large, almost to a
and that's a horrible.
There are exceptions. There is a Venn diagram where there's a little bit of a silver moon on the outside that isn't this. But
I think Danny, that you being an atheist,
some version of philosophical naturalists, right? So my question still comes back to then. Okay, but then if I ask you, not what kind of evidence could ever even be mustered that could even possibly falsify your naturalism?
Violations of the laws of physics.
I have a good answer.
But why? So then,
like
but
the
then
resurrection.
Let's play that out.
I think there's a misunderstanding about what naturalism is. Naturalism is not supposed to explain anything, right? It's just it's a metaphysical postulate about what the nature of reality. That's not supposed to explain anything. It's just saying the nature of things are this way. That's all.
Right, but I'm talking about
if we discovered that the gospel was written in the cosmic background radiation, that would be pretty undeniable.
But
so,
why?
You mean
or
listen?
But then
you mean the constellations?
You could come back and say, okay, but I could think of a whole bunch of natural explanations, right? It could be alien pranksters. It could be, think of genetically modified skeptic. It's not code. It's just amino acids, right? So it's not written in the background radiation. Our minds are just pattern forming machines. And so we just happen to see that there. It's not actually that. How do we know that, right? You could think of all of these natural explanations, which are then again just intrinsically more probable than why would you resort to the explanation of a sky daddy did it?
Yeah, but I mean, if something existed in a human language like English, written somewhere in literally in the stars prior to humans existing, wouldn't that be pretty convincing evidence?
That would be pretty convincing to me.
Yeah. I don't know. How about the Hamming equivalent error correction codes written into the fabric of the universe?
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. Say that again.
YouTube, when you have time, YouTube the Hamming equivalent error correction codes written into the fabric of the universe, and there's papers on this topic, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, type that in chat, please.
Yeah, I was about to say, how do you spell that?
Hamming. But in line where some of the things Tyler's been talking about here in terms of the, what would you need to find, right? If the point that I've raised many, many times in my debates, as Leo can attest, is that the naturalist, even when you present those sorts of concepts to them, of things of well, what about this and this and this and this and this? Oh, well, no, there's a naturalistic explanation for that. Or even if we don't have it, at some point we will find it, and therefore I can dismiss the points that are being made or the inferences that are being postulated by somebody like myself in that context. So it's if you're always going to go down that rabbit hole, then to the point Tyler's making in terms of it's not falsifiable, you're just going to say, oh, well, there's always going to be an option, even if all things from a plausibility perspective and a probability perspective say otherwise.
Don't you think there's always a probability that some event could be some unknown natural process or something like that? Albeit however small.
Well, Leo, as you know, you can come up with a hypothetical probability for anything, right? But at some point, from a plausibility perspective, in any other context, in all other contexts, people are like, oh, you immediately dismiss things that have it's 1 in 10 to the 1018th power, for example, which is the recognized improbabilities for weird background noise. What's going on?
It might be me. Sorry.
People need to mute. That was weird. Like Eugene Koonin, for example, publicly states H-index 266 for anybody who wants to know. Atheist, he actually holds to the necessity of the multiverse in order to account for the recognized improbability of the replication factors necessary for life to exist. It's like, oh, well, we know it's one, the math is 1 in 10 to the 1018th power. So there must be a multiverse. Like, he doesn't want to concede that maybe there was an intelligent agent necessary, i.e. God.
Anything beyond 10 to the 50th power is considered to be statistically impossible.
Well,
I don't know about that.
why,
I mean, there's events that have probabilities significantly smaller than that happen all the time.
It's statistically impossible as an explanation, right? It's dismissed as an explanation. It's the rule of improbability. But that actually is kind of the point, right? So let's imagine that we could look up in the stars and like the first gospel, we could find almost as a consolation the first gospel of John, or, the first chapter of the Gospel of John, written in Greek. We could find it, we could trace it in the stars and see it, right? For example,
that would convince me for sure.
But here's my question: is why though?
No,
is
it wouldn't.
It's improbable and
I think it
information
would.
conveying. But if it's improbable and information conveying, we have that same statistical anomaly with genetic code that has the type of thing, right? So it's statistically the same type of improbability, and it contains.
Against what have we measured that it's improbable?
The genetic coding?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do mathematical models about the
against what?
Have you watched James Tour's?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Do you think that he's crazy?
James Tour isn't an expert in this field.
Well, he may not be an expert in that specific field, but he does know what he's talking about.
Well, yes, but not with respect to this specific field, because he's not an expert in this specific field.
I understand, but
Okay,
do you find his arguments...
Bob, hang on. Leo, please don't be a dumbass. Honestly,
what does being a dumbass have to? He's not. He's an organic chemist. He's not an origins of life researcher. It's just a fact. He's not an expert in this field.
Hang on, Leo. You clearly didn't actually watch all of his lectures.
I did. Yes.
On this topic, you watched all 12.
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So, what was the point that he was making? What was the primary argument that he was making in relation to the chemical plausibility of all these things taking place? What was the core argument that he was making?
I guess I don't know what you mean.
Okay. Why don't you go watch him again, and then we'll come back and have this conversation.
Well,
again.
I mean, can you explain what it was that you were asking me?
No, go watch the videos again, because clearly, if you don't know,
can you explain what it was that you were asking?
No, you're going to go watch it again.
Do you not want to have a conversation about it?
Dude, he made the same point over and over. I'm so tired of freaking atheists on YouTube who run around being like, he's not the standard.
So then why don't you explain your points to me?
Leo, silence. You run around saying he's not an expert in origin of life research, therefore he couldn't possibly know what he's talking about.
I didn't make that claim.
You made that inference.
No, I didn't.
Dude.
No,
Yes,
I
you
did.
did,
No, I didn't. All I claimed is that he's not an expert in this field.
Leo, silence. Poll of the audience. Did Leo?
The audience doesn't decide what I meant by what I said.
Okay. Well, I give no rat's ass.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's true.
Leo,
they don't.
Okay, well, how about this? Because one of the major things you'll learn about communication is that perception is reality, right? So there's a certain point where you have to say, like, I'm going to own how my communication you might not have intended it that way, but if everybody takes it that way, there's a certain sense where you can say, okay, I made a communication error, right? Like,
I don't necessarily think
it might not have been how you intended it, but that was that was on the face of it. I think.
Well, I think in your opinion, but that's just you speaking. I don't know if there's anybody else that may see it that way.
Leo, shut up and answer questions, yes or no, okay? Or I'm kicking you out because it's so annoying. Okay, is it your position that because he has not published papers on origin of life research in peer-reviewed journals, that he cannot understand the chemistry arguments that are made by said papers?
I guess I don't understand what it is exactly that you're asking me. Are you saying that
Leo? Now you're playing dumb because you know.
No, I'm trying to understand what you're asking me. I'm trying to be genuine and understand. Okay, John, do you not want me to understand your position?
This always happens with you.
Do you not want me to understand your position?
You always turn into this.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying, and you're doing a very poor job of explicating what you're trying to tell me. I'm just asking you.
Okay,
what
panel.
you mean. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Leo, be quiet. Panel, was what I just said difficult to understand?
Why do you keep deferring to the panel? Just tell me what you mean.
Apparently,
why are you making
what I'm
this
saying and it agrees with me on what you've been saying?
How do you know they haven't expressed that?
Okay,
I thought you were talking to me.
I'm attempting to give them a response.
Why are you asking other people if you're talking to me?
Because
tell me.
Okay, so Leo's.
I have one. Well, you already kicked him. If you let him back, I only have one question.
I'm going to let him back in. He's just backstage. He's not he's not ousted. Okay.
I'm just saying, John. I
hang
have
on.
one
I'm going to
question.
clarify Bob, silence. I'm going to clarify my position, then I'm going to let him back in, and everybody can have the dumpster fire again. Okay. The reason I am so irritated about this is because it is an ad nauseum talking point from atheists on YouTube everywhere that unless you are a quote unquote expert, i.e., you got your PhD in this specific niche subset, it doesn't matter if, like James Tour, you're one of the top 10 most cited chemists on the planet. You have been deemed by your peers to be one of the 50 most influential and innovative minds of the past century. If you literally review papers like this before they go into the journals. Like, you are asked to review this stuff. And then we have dumbasses run around being like, the guy that reviews papers and is asked to review papers before they're allowed to go into the peer-reviewed journals. Okay? He doesn't know what they say. This is hilarious. It is the equivalent. Actually, in my interview with Dr. Tour, he and I actually had we discussed this exact topic, right? And one of the things that was discussed was the analogy I brought up was this is very similar to like some little 12-year-old boy who's playing street ball, running around talking mad shit about how he could whoop Michael Jordan's ass if he was actually playing. Because I got the game, baby. He ain't as good as everybody talks about. He couldn't stop me. And then MJ finds out about it, shows up on the basketball court, and it's like, "Hey, bro, what's up? I heard you been talking trash about me. You want to play? Let's go." And then you would get completely owned. And then then he leaves, and he's like, "Ah, man, I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even trying to take him." And it's like, this is what we're talking about here with jackasses on freaking YouTube running around talking that people like Tour and other folks it's not whether or not they agree or disagree has nothing to do with whether or not they understand the arguments and they understand the chemistry or whatever the other topic is. They can understand the concept and have a difference of opinion and reach a different conclusion or be raising objections to something that have to be answered. And again, I'm not trying to just defend Tour here, but in Tour's case, he has made plethora of offers. He has published very long form articles on on a variety of platforms, putting forth arguments to which none of the Origin of Life researchers have responded. They have not addressed his positions. They talk a bunch of little crap. Oh, a little interview here. They're not actually responding in academic sense to the arguments that have been raised by people like Tour. They're
not all arguments. They're questions. He has questions.
Right. And again, I'm not trying to turn this into an Origin of Life deal. I'm just using this as an example because this just drives me up the freaking wall with naturalists and the materialists on atheists. Like it's so obnoxious and so myopic of a worldview on full display. Anyway, enough of my tangent. Leo, you're coming back in, and Sal's joining us as well.
What's up, Sal? Can I ask you a question, John?
Hey, Sal.
Can I ask you a question, Leo?
Yes, Sal.
I'd like to.
Can I ask you a question, Bob? First. We're supposed to tag each other.
Yeah. So should I trust what Richard Carrier says with respect to the story of Jesus?
To that point, what John was saying.
Why not?
If you have,
because he's an idiot.
Well, but he has a PhD in ancient history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he does. So why shouldn't I trust him?
Dude,
well, you can listen to his argumentation and
ask Dapper Dino. Dapper Dino will tell you
Dino has to do with this discussion. I'm
John,
running a hypothetical.
I
mean,
Dapper Dino does not like Richard Carrier.
That's fine. That's what Dapper Dino's opinion is.
He's a history guy. He's not a creationist.
I'm not talking about Richard Carrier. I'm just trying to run a hypothetical. That's
Hey,
all I'm doing.
Leo. Sal is one of the nicest among us.
I realize that. I know that.
I
I love Sal. He's a great guy. I think he's fucking phenomenal. He's one of my favorite guys on YouTube. Sorry, I apologize. All I'm saying is I'm just trying to run a hypothetical. So
here's the thing about
Richard Carrier has a PhD in ancient history.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing about
that's relevant. That's relevant to the topic of the historical Jesus. But there's a reason why none of us would really consider him an expert in the field. He doesn't have any postgraduate research experience or anything with respect to specifically ancient Near Eastern texts, early Christianity, things of that nature. So despite the fact that he has a PhD in ancient history, a field that is broadly relevant to this subject, his specialty does not fall within historical Jesus. So we wouldn't consider him an expert. I never once said that James Tour isn't one of the most phenomenal chemists on the planet, because I think that he is. All I said is that he's not an expert with respect to specifically origins of life, which is a fact. I didn't say anything about any other understanding he has about chemistry. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
I should point out, I didn't bring up origin of life. Like, you derailed it.
Well, I was responding to what John had spent almost 10 minutes saying. That's
right,
what I was doing.
But it derailed from that, right? Because remember, going back, my point was that if the first chapter of John was written in the stars as some type of like complex constellation, you said, well, that would convince me. And I said, well, why? Is it just because it's statistically
I'm not the one
information
that said that
and
would
it's information
convince me.
conveying? Is it just because it meets those two features? Well, if that's the case, then things like genetic information and specified complexity and fine tuning of the cosmos, those are all information conveying that are wildly statistically more improbable, right? So my point is, if you want to be consistent and say that thing would convince me because it has these two features, I'm going to say, okay, well, then you shouldn't dismiss these other lines of evidence that theists bring up that meet those same two features even more so.
Well, right? I'm not the one that said
my point. That's all that my point was.
Yeah, I get that. I just wanted to specify. I'm not the one that said I would be convinced by that written in the stars. I said that it would depend on, I mean, if it was written like literally stars wrote out the sentences in English, then I would, because those stars would likely, because the age of those stars would precede humans, and the fact that they were written in English, a language that humans at least supposedly developed, tells us that at least that specific language didn't come from humans. There is somebody else out there that is trying to communicate with us, and they obviously gave us the language to do so. And if it's a passage from the Bible, I would wonder, I'm not saying that I would like 100% that is God, but I think that the evidential chips would fall more toward Christianity in that respect.
But why? Like, again, why? Sorry, Bob, I don't mean, I just
explained why, because English is a language developed by humans, right? It's only been around for about 900 years.
Remember,
correct?
My question was, what would falsify your naturalism? Right? So
a violation of the laws of physics that is consistent and understood.
Like the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
But well, hold on. Let's go back. Again, if it's written in English, prior to that, again, why would you think that would falsify your naturalism? Why wouldn't you just say, okay, well, our universe is bigger. Maybe it's a Prometheus type thing where there's this alien race that predated us, and I
didn't necessarily say that it would falsify naturalism. I just said that it would. All I said is I'm making more of like a Bayesian probabilistic argument that if for some reason a biblical verse was written in stars that were older than the planet Earth, in English, so obviously they're older than the English language. They were around before the Bible was written by humans. All I'm saying is the evidential chips fall in favor of Christianity in that sense. That doesn't necessarily mean that Christianity is true. All this means is that this, as an observation, falls more in favor of Christianity than otherwise. That's the only claim I'm making.
A free thinker?
Yeah.
I think I have a point to make and a question. I think the answer to the question would be short, and I think that would get me out of here pretty quickly. And I think, you know, Sal had something to say when you get done with what you want to say. He's more patient than me, but if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Leo, I would say that the reason that I don't accept Richard Carrier's argumentation is because I find his argumentation poor, not because, you know, he doesn't have enough qualifications or something.
I find James Tour's argumentation poor when it comes to respect of the origins of life, largely because the vast majority of experts with respect to that specialized field disagree with what he says, just like the vast majority of relevant, competent experts with respect to the historical Jesus disagree with Richard Carrier.
And I'm going to go ahead and call
so
scatology on Leo, having watched those videos. Leo, you're so full of shit, dude. You are so full of shit.
Do you think it's possible that I could have watched the videos yet disagree with him? Do you think that's a possibility?
No, the argument you're making about the points that Tour's making, it proves beyond all doubt that you didn't answer my question. You didn't actually listen.
How do you know
what he was saying?
Well, how do you know I didn't listen, but I just disagree with him? I'm asking you a question. How do you know that I just don't disagree?
Oh, okay.
You're acting like it's impossible that I could disagree with him.
Okay, no, Leo, you just pay attention, dude. It's so annoying having to put you backstage, man. The whole point that's being made, and the whole point that Tour was making, which is why I am calling you out for not having, either you, if you watched him, you weren't paying attention, because I know you're not dumb enough for it to go over your head. Okay. So I'm pretty sure the point that was rather clearly made in those lectures, as he was reviewing the papers by those people you're referring to, was that they hadn't actually shown what the talking points that people like you spew claim they have proven aren't actually what they're showing and proving in their papers and in their research. And when you go through all the methods and when he goes down the rabbit holes, you find that these strong assertions that all these experts are making haven't actually been accomplished. That was one of the foundational points that was made through that entire lecture series. It was showing how, in spite of all the hyperbole and all the propaganda, the experts themselves haven't backed up their bullshit. And that's the point, dude. And clearly, either that went over your head or you didn't actually listen to it. And you're just buying into we did this, but you haven't actually gone and looked to see if it's actually been accomplished. It's just like the crap, and you've probably heard my conversation with Dr. Gart about this exact topic. On all the we've created self-replicating RNA strands, and then you go down and you read the freaking paper, and it's like, no, it can ligate. It's ligating. It's not self-replicating. It's ligating. And there's all different. That's just an example, right? But this case goes on and on and on and on, and that's the point that Tour was making. And it's why he makes the entire point about how the funding and all this stuff needs to go into review. It's not that we should stop doing the research. It's not that we should stop trying to figure out how life could have existed or come into being from a naturalistic perspective, but we need to stop acting like we've proven all these things, because we haven't. And that is the entire point. And again, I'm just guessing that went way over your head. But anyway, Sal, welcome to the stream. How you doing, brother? You're on mute, Sal, if you're saying something.
I just wanted to come by and congratulate you. I dropped in late because I had a 2-hour stream with Dr. Dan talking about a paper. We were doing a journal club. And I said, all the nerds are here on my channel. And I said, if you're a party animal, go to LPP's channel. So I did try to send them over your way.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, the dumpster fire. Well, actually, the dumpster fire started a few minutes before you arrived. We were actually being very reserved, and then we heard that you were coming, and everybody decided to go into dumpster fire mode.
So I just wanted to thank you, and I was thinking and reflecting of how our channels have grown over the last 2 years, and I'd say the most significant event was James Tour pouncing on Dave Farina. Oh my goodness! People ask me why I'm a creationist. I've been in this for 40 years. I became a Christian about 40 years ago. And even though not every problem in young Earth creationists has been solved, what I've seen is that the origin of life problem was what converted me, but it wasn't very well defended for the creationist side back in 1980. But as time went, the defense of miraculous creation got stronger and stronger. And then when I saw James Tour take apart Farina, I said, you could take that and just destroy just about every origin of life paper in the same way, because those things are irrelevant experiments. They're hyped up and they're just being falsely advertised to the public, and it's not very honest. And I was glad he's calling it out. Occasionally, some of the origin of life researchers are brutally honest, and I've reviewed some of their papers on our channel. When they start appealing, like Kunin, to multiple universes to solve the origin of life problem, you know the other side is losing that argument. So I was just thinking, what can we really celebrate in the last 2 years that has happened outside of our channel? It would be James Tour. So
I got a quick thing I wanted to mention. Freethinker was saying that the problem is there's nothing that will ever, falsify a naturalist view. Just even the two arguments, something written in the stars. Well, people will start arguing, well, they actually just copied the stars. It's not like the Bible predicted it; they copied it. That's one argument. And then Leo said, if you saw something contradicting physics consistently and we understood it, all what would happen is that, oh no, we just don't understand physics good enough. A little bit later, we'll figure it out. So there's nothing that will ever contradict if you hold.
Yeah, I think that counts against supernaturalism as a worldview. What I think it shows is that it's inconsistent.
Well, I asked something more personal to Matt Dillahunty and Tracy Harris and other people. I said, look at the Gospel of John chapter 9. The blind beggar is healed. So if you're a blind beggar and you don't even know where your next meal is coming from, you're just out there begging for your next meal. Someone comes along and your eyes are opened and you can see, and you knew that the word of the Messiah, he'd be arriving. And then Jesus tells you he's the Messiah. Would you follow him the rest of your life? And I was actually shocked. I was naive. Matt Dillahunty, Tracy Harris, T-Jump said no. So I said, okay, I didn't expect that. So, but that told me a lot of where people are.
If someone came along to me and proved to me somehow, I don't know how they would do it, that they were Jesus, I would accept it. I don't know what that would mean, but if they somehow got in my head and showed me stuff I didn't know and said, I'm the Messiah,
I think I agree with that. I mean, if like somebody like all of a sudden just like light flashed into my room and I understood quantum gravity, and then like all of a sudden I published it, it got peer reviewed, it got accepted, it turned out to be true, I would probably be like, if that wasn't an extraterrestrial, that was friggin' God. Like, how else would I get that? No, like something like that, yes. But other than that, I don't.
But that's the point, is that it goes straight into extraterrestrials, so it becomes naturalistic.
Exactly. So can I ask you a question? Why do you think it goes to extraterrestrials at least first?
Because you hold to that paradigm.
Never mind, I already forgot. It's too late.
The
reason it goes to extraterrestrial. You answer the question.
No. Go ahead. I don't care who answers it. I just wanted somebody to.
I think the reason it goes to extraterrestrial first is because it's easier to believe that there is some species of creature that has existed long before us, has had much more time to develop technologically. I mean, like, okay, look, raising the dead. There's, like, naturalistically, there's no way that happens. Somebody has to be, but it doesn't seem like something that is impossible given sufficient technology. So
I think that depends.
What depends on what?
The time passed. I would say that after 3 days, raising a human body from the dead is physically impossible. Not logically impossible. I can very much logically conceive of that, but physically, physics and chemistry, not possible.
Wait.
But what I hear, just really quickly, is that Christians say that's what makes it a miracle. Is that
Leo, ultimately the point is the DNA, right?
Wait, what do you mean?
All you need to resurrect somebody is the DNA.
I don't think so. I think you need properly operating organs and everything like that, and that after 3 days it's deteriorated to the point that from a physics and a chemistry standpoint it's simply not going to operate in a functional manner that would allow for somebody to be resurrected.
Wait, hold on. Have you thought through what you just stated there, buddy? Because
yes, I have.
Okay, so let's think if you actually have. So you're suggesting that if you had all the parts already aggregated, that you couldn't bring something to life, but you think that it's plausible for when all those things don't yet exist, that life could come to be.
So are you asking me that? So you think that when we have an already developed and evolved human body and we have all the materials, you can't get life out of it, but somehow all of that developed through natural processes and made life? How does that make sense? Something along those lines.
We're talking about physics and chemistry, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to. What I was trying to do was steel man the argument that that you made.
But you're saying that even with an intelligent agent with a lot of technology, you don't think that it would be plausible to bring something back to life after 3 days, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So
why?
If you don't think it's plausible with an intelligent agent with a super advanced technology way in the future could do this, why do you think that it's plausible for when you have none of that for just physics and chemistry to cause life to come to be?
Because I think life is very much a stepwise process. I think that there are very, very complex and not so complex things that can be considered life. And I think that life is more than the structures. I think it's the functions those structures engage in. And I think that those structures can deteriorate to an extent such that the functions can no longer take place. And even though you have the structures thereby, you wouldn't have life because the functions cannot engage.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're observing right now is the fact that a smart guy like Leo is so blinded by his atheism, he is completely missing the point.
How does atheism blind me?
He's obviously missing.
He's blinded by Satan.
It's truly fascinating how he's not actually grasping how much more implausible life existing is than the intelligent agent in the future with massive amounts of technology being able to form life.
I think life developing is very implausible. I'm actually being serious. Like I'm not being like sarcastic. I think the development of life is very implausible. But I certainly think it can obviously happen because it has.
Right. So you say that it's extremely implausible, but we're here, so that must be what has happened, right?
Yeah, I think the development of heavy elements like lead or iridium or strontium is very highly implausible, but I still think it happens. Okay. And it does happen.
Well, I don't want to get into that yet.
That was more just an analogy to demonstrate that.
So you were saying that if I had your DNA, it would be impossible to resurrect you?
Yes.
And you mentioned organs. Well, like if you mentioned the brain specifically, given we presuppose that our memories are stored in our brain, then I could potentially take that as a functional argument. But if you say like, well, it's too long for the liver to survive, that's not the point. The point is that if somebody had DNA, they could rebuild the entire body. That's what DNA does in itself.
Potentially. The idea that we can like take a person's DNA and like literally make an exact copy of them in a test tube is fucking Hollywood. I'm sorry. It is Hollywood stuff. That in reality, that is not something that we would really be able to do.
Today, we can't do that. You don't think that one day we'll have technology sufficient to be able to do something like that? Or aliens
no,
who
I
have lived for millions of years long, you don't think that they could do that?
No, I don't. I think that the
Why
processes
is that?
because I think that the chemical processes involved in DNA and its replication are significantly too complex and far too stochastic for us to be able to control them in a way to just take some. Because I am part of my mother's DNA and my father's DNA, but I am not an exact replica of exactly half of both of them. Because DNA is a chemical; it operates in a stochastic way.
Wait, but you're a replica of your DNA.
I don't.
You're not a
know
replica of your
what
mother or
that
your father.
means.
Yes, I understand that. But if you took not the DNA of your father and your mother, the DNA that is in any of your cells, all of your cells, if they took that, don't you think that somebody with sufficient technology and understanding of DNA and all, just everything about biology, do you think that one day we would be able to rebuild you?
No.
And so why not again?
Well, what do you mean by you?
Oh, okay. So irrespective of memories, potentially, we can come back to memories. I think that's the only thing that distinguishes. So like two identical twins. I think the only thing that distinguishes identical twins is basically memories. Would you disagree?
And epigenetics.
Yeah, that is actually a fact. Yeah.
True. True.
I would say that it's more than just memories; it's experience. They are identical only in genetic makeup, and again, that's an. Well, not really. Even genetically, it's more of an effective identity. It isn't a true identity like in set theory identity where it's well defined. But this is why you can have two identical twins with completely different views on the world. Is because they can be two completely different people because their experiences are different. All of that plays into who a you is. And so if you were to recreate somebody that looked exactly like me and had my exact atomic structure, they would end up having different experiences of the world. They would form different opinions and ideals and what have you, and would be a different person.
Exact atomic structure?
If you grant that, yes, yeah. They would still have the entirely different.
Okay, so if two things have identical atomic structure, how could they be different?
Because what they are, as in the person, isn't simply a result of the atomic structure. It's a result of the functions that it engages in and the processes emergent from that. And those you can't ever guarantee will be identical.
Okay, so for the purposes of a computer, let's say, what do you do for a living?
Me, I study physics largely and then make YouTube videos. That's what I do for.
Okay, so
physics
you probably never had to take. Okay, so in the military and
he's also a translator. He's also a translator.
Oh, what language do you know other than English?
I don't.
You said he was
he's an actor and a / model, reference to Zoolander movie, and he also is a transgender model. He's multi-talented.
Okay, I'm getting the impression that there are inside jokes that I'm not aware of. So let's just go back to the topic. So
Leo
when I was in the military,
I could clone people with $10,000 worth of equipment.
Let's do it. Let's prove this right. Let's do it.
And a lot of hormones. That's the expensive part.
Are you guys
hormone therapy, man? A lot of people don't like that, man.
Okay, here's the serious question I have for Leo, real quick, and then we'll let Bob finish this point. So, Leo, I agree with you in regards to is it you from an experiential perspective. However, if we have the exact same atomic structure from your materialistic worldview,
I'm not a materialist.
So, are you a dualist?
No, I'm a physicalist. Not everybody does, but I differ. If you're using them to mean the same, then no, I'm just saying if you're using them to mean the same, then just continue. I differentiate, but if you're using them to mean the same, then just go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you want to play something, okay, I can share. I know that the more what's becoming popular is physicalist.
Settle down.
We'll go physicalist. From a physicalist perspective, if you have the exact same atomic structure, what defines you?
That structure and the processes which it engages in, the functions which it engages in, and the structures that are emergent from that.
Right. So, but if from the physicalist perspective, all of those functions and systems are derived from specific organization of molecules, then if you have the exact same atomic structure, then by default, all of those systems would be the exact same. So,
not necessarily.
Yes, if you have the exact same atomic structure, if the molecules and the atoms are in the exact same structure, then by default, they are the same as the predecessor.
Well, atomically, yes, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, yes, okay.
Wait, the complication here is that it's going to be, look, I think there's a complication here. What functionalists are going to say is that given the environment, you could have the exact same atom for atom replica of the body, but if you have a different environment, there's going to be a different function.
Exactly. Function is not the same as structure. You can have similar structure, identical structure, different function.
Okay, let me ask. There's an error being made here by both you guys, and I would like to have you back up. And John, what's the question or the statement about structure and identical? Are we saying identical structure and the same particles, or identical structure and different particles? Because identical structure does not equal identity.
Okay,
I actually agree with that. I think identity relations supervenes on that.
We're gonna really dumb this down, okay? Because if you guys are, I would love to see you guys go and talk to a biochemist and be like, "Hey guys, I have Leo, shut your mouth, dude. I'm literally trying to make a point and not getting interrupted. You can go backstage again if you can't figure that out. Go talk to a biochemist and ask them if the atoms are in the exact same place.
Hey John.
Forming what? Who the fuck is interrupting me now?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good Lord. I just want to finish the sentence and we can get back to this because you guys are clearly.
Hey John, you want to finish your sentence?
Okay. We're gonna wrap this up in 7 minutes. I'm not getting fucking interrupted. It's really obnoxious. Now, in this context, and by the way, the next person that interrupts me until I say I yield is gone for the rest of the evening. So please keep your freaking mouth shut, especially you, Kenny. This whole point that's being made from a biological system perspective, if the atoms are in the exact same location, you're going to have the same function. Now you can have so there can be stochastic aspects to all of this, but if you have all the atoms in the same place, and if from the physicalist perspective, the memories and all those different aspects, the things that make you from that perspective are being derived from the physical location of those atoms and forming and all the molecules and things like the talon protein and how all that structure is storing data, then you can't sit here and say that if it's exactly the same that you wouldn't be you, unless what makes you isn't purely derived from the physical location of molecules and atoms, or in the atoms that make them up, in what is forming this physical shape. Like, this is not that complicated of a premise to look at. And if you want to argue that the systems that operate in biology are not derived specifically from the specific molecular formations of the components that are encoded in the DNA, then you're just showcasing staggering ignorance and blindness that is plaguing atheists on YouTube. All right, I yield.
Do you think that, so if I bought two 2021 MacBook Pro 13s, would you say that those are identical?
Do you think the atomic structure is the exact same?
I'm asking you that question.
No, do you think you're asking a dumbass question because you know as well as I do.
I'm just
Leo,
asking you the same question you're putting on to me. I don't know why
Leo,
this is hard.
The position you took.
I haven't expressed a position. I just asked you a question.
Okay, Leo, you're done. Bye-bye.
Okay,
I
bye.
would say no. I would say no.
Leo's being an idiot again because he knows full well that nobody would ever argue that the atomic structure would be identical in the MacBook. That was not the point that was being made. This whole thread started on if you had it anatomically identical, then what would be the outcome?
Okay, so John, I was going to make a point like that. So you work with software and stuff, and you deal with laptops and computers and stuff. So you've dealt with, okay, I need to have a laptop imaged, right?
Sorry, what were you saying?
You've dealt with having, so I have to have, like, I get a new laptop and it has to be imaged. You've dealt with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up something along those lines, and so there's a couple different things, and I think that maybe he doesn't, well, he probably understands the difference. And so there's this extremely literal, is the orbit of every single electron around every single, nucleus of every single atom in the entire atom, the entire laptop the same? No, but like functionally is it the same thing? I was gonna kind of go in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, we can get that right. I'm gonna let you guys talk.
But I think the idea, Bob,
I'm just stunningly annoyed with the semantic bullshit that atheists on YouTube like to play, and this is one of my biggest frustrations with Leo. Is Leo?
Leo's extremely literal.
Leo, stop talking trash in the side chat. You're backstage. Don't act like you have been kicked yet, buddy. You're backstage, so don't start whining in side chat.
Oh, go ahead.
This stuff just drives me up the freaking wall because Leo, and the reason I go off on Leo is because I know he's not a moron.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other atheists running around YouTube that are complete idiots. And you can tell, it's very easy in conversation to know they have the IQ points below Forrest Gump. Okay? Leo is not that. And yet he plays semantic games attempting to spin truth or then to act like he's just not understanding something, which is bullshit because he's not dumb enough to understand it. He's actually smart enough to try and play games, try and dodge. It doesn't matter whether or not he ultimately agrees with the position that I'm taking or somebody else is taking. But when he dances around, tries to act like there's not something that has to be addressed if the XYZ was the case. Like, that's what drives me up the freaking wall. It's like he's not that stupid.
Hey, John?
I personally think it's three different things. One, he's extremely literal. So
it's none of those. I can tell you what it is. I asked him a question, and he answered it after he kicked me, but he didn't answer it when I asked him. His answer was no when he kicked me, but he didn't answer it when I asked him. Why not?
Answer what?
Well, so I asked him if I bought the two of these laptops, same year, same style, same model, everything, are they identical? His answer after he kicked me was no, but he didn't say that when I asked him. He could have just said no, they're not, because the atomic structure probably isn't exactly the same. And I would have been like, okay, yes. Never mind then, and I would have just ceded.
Right. So obviously, Leo, my whole entire rant
Donnie, come in.
of why I was so irritated is because you were bringing up something that had zero relevance because you know, and I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that it's not exactly the same comparison, but you're still bringing up something that you know that I know that you know that I know is not relevant, which is the entire point. We're wasting all this time dancing around the whole point. And then you're going to bring up something that is not relevant to the whole point that was being made while you simultaneously were claiming that, oh, well, it could be the same, but not actually the same. And then you're trying to like dodge it with, well, you have two MacBooks and they have the same parts. I mean, it's like, don't even bring up that dumb crap, dude. Jackson,
Mr. Maddox, sir.
And same software.
Mr. Maddox.
Yes.
May I speak now?
Go ahead.
Hi.
What's up, man?
Do my ears deceive me, or is that the greatest drummer alive?
Yes, your ears do not deceive you.
I've got something to say.
Excellent.
Go ahead, Jackson. You've been being very quiet. Go ahead, man.
Okay. We can talk about the same DNA structure. I know how to clone people. I just need 2 micro-injectors, 2 micro-manipulators, a micropipette holder, a micropipette injector needle, an inverted microscope, and some human volunteers. So that's my speech.
I would suggest that you join the dark side, which is a pathway to what many would say is unnatural.
See, I would ask this question then. I know we were arguing about if two people are the same, if they copy the genetics. What if you took literally scanned every single atom, every electron in a person, and made a duplicate exactly, perfectly the same? Does that mean there's two of the same person, or are they different people?
It depends on the experiences.
Guys, I have to say, this generation gap is phenomenal. I grew up with Sesame Street, and we had this game that we played called which one of these things is doing its own thing, or which one of these things is not the same.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. You guys need some Sesame Street if you guys want to continue this conversation. Just saying.
I still watch Arthur sometimes.
I watched Arthur, Sesame Street, Clifford, Roly Poly Oly, all the classics of the 90s. And 80s.
Shut up, Leo. Now you're showing off.
Hey, but you know what I'm talking about, though. So is it really showing off? I mean, come on, you know what I'm talking about.
You're kissing up to me now, and I'm feeling uncomfortable.
So, Leo, you were talking about MacBooks, and if you have, let's say, 2 MacBooks are in Best Buy, right? Like that's all you know. Are they the same MacBook? Well, from an identity perspective, we know that they're not in the same location at the same time, so they're different. But would you be able to distinguish between the two?
Yes. So the point of me asking that question was to start. What I was trying to do was.
Are you saying yes that you would be able to distinguish, or are you?
Oh
saying,
yes.
I understand that, and I want to say something.
Yes, you would be able to distinguish them. I'm agreeing with you.
At least in principle, right?
I wasn't arguing the 2 MacBooks of the same year, same model, same type, all that stuff are identical. That wasn't the point of me asking that question. I was going to start to run down a line of argumentation. It didn't happen, but about the concept of identity, because I think it's a very interesting concept, and people have different ideas of that. I don't know how John views the concept of identity. So what I was trying to do was get a grasp on what that is, to try to understand how he understands identity, to better express my worldview to him.
That's all I was trying to do. I was approaching it from your, unless that's the reason. Why do you think I asked you the question if you were a dualist or not?
To get at my worldview and to better understand what my worldview is.
Well, it's really just a basic clarification point. Like, if you are not a dualist, then you think that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm assuming you're not an idealist.
No.
Okay, cool. So as a physicalist materialist, you think that your sense of self is somehow derived from the molecular structure of your brain and other portions of your physical body, correct?
In a simplistic sense, yes.
Well, no, at the root.
Well, because
it's all emergent, right? Don't you claim it's all emergent ultimately?
Emergent, yes, and that's what I was going to ask. It depends on reduction versus emergence, and I take the emergence.
But that emergence ultimately is derived from and is caused by the organization of molecules, correct?
I don't know if I would use the word caused, but yes, I can agree with that.
Well, aren't all emergent properties from the physicalist perspective ultimately derived from specific structures?
Well, I would say that they supervene on them.
But they still have to be there, right?
Wait,
first.
What's supervene?
So X supervenes on Y if some change in X demands some change in Y. You can only change X if you're changing Y, thereby X supervenes on Y.
Right. Now, ultimately, all of that requires that X and Y be in specific structure on the molecular level in order for those supervening actions to take place, correct? Otherwise, they wouldn't be happening. If X has to be like this and Y has to be like this, even if there's something that supervenes if X and Y are like this, unless X and Y are like that, you don't have the emergent aspect, correct?
Okay, yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. I'm glad we have now clarified something that's like a fundamental basic of all this stuff. Okay, cool. So ultimately, that requires that you ultimately is derived from trillions of different atoms being in specific locales in order for all the things in combination that is you, correct? From a physicalist perspective.
I guess it would depend on what you mean by derive. If you mean like emerge out of, then yes.
Dude, dude, I know you're not that dumb, dude. Stop playing semantic bullshit. We
I don't
clarified
know
this
what
already.
I don't know what you mean, but I don't know what you mean by semantic bullshit.
Now,
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Ultimately, from your perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, what is you right now is the result of all these different experiences throughout your life that has ultimately resulted in the current molecular structure and atomic structure that is Leophilius in this current moment is the result of all these different actions that have culminated in where we're having right now having this conversation, correct?
Yes, all of the functions and processes of the brain throughout its development and extends through reality. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So if there was a direct copy of all of that, which is now being contained in this current molecular structure of your entire self, right? If there was an exact copy of that from your physicalist perspective, would the sense of that self not be you if it was a 100% copy of all of that? What is you right now? We have the technology to make an exact copy of that. Okay. From your perspective, would that have the same sense of self as you? Because again, as we've already clarified, everything that is you is the culmination of all these experiences, which has led to this specific atomic structure, which we have now copied 100%. Is the copy you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just saying if there was an identical copy of you here right now, would it be identical to you? Well, yes, of course. I would just take that to be analytic.
Okay.
What about 1 second later?
So this is what we've been dancing around and arguing about for 45 minutes, is because this was the exact point that Bob was making 45 minutes ago. If in the future you had the technology to be able to do this and make the exact copy, would it be you? Right? We have now argued about this for 45 minutes. You've been kicked out 3 times. I've gone on a rant and dropping F-bombs, BSing, and all this kind of stuff to finally get this agreed upon from the physicalist perspective, that if you have this, then you would have a 100% copy. I mean, good gravy.
We have the technology to clone people now. It's just that it's illegal. That's all.
I don't know. What do we mean by clone people?
Well, hang on, Jackson. Here's the differentiation. Right now, we have the ability to clone the starting genetic material. We, however, do not have the ability
than a blastocyst or whatever.
Well, yeah, but no. But here's the important part. Like, we clone Dolly. We can clone dogs and all sorts of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. What we cannot clone is the epigenetic modifications that have been a result of all those experiences. And this goes back to the aspect of the identical twins.
Yeah, you can't
right?
clone thoughts.
The epigenome of identical twins is different before they leave their mother's womb. This is now known, right? They're very, 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 very similar. But
that is amazing. We need to talk about that more.
But there's epigenetic variation while they're in the womb. Okay, so that's the point I was making in the context of the differentiation with our cloning now versus if you have the ability to make an exact copy of all the molecules. And in this case, right, it would be, can I copy all of the epigenetics that have been aggregated throughout the course of that organism, whether it be dog or human's life? All of those epigenetic factors can they be copied as well? If you could potentially make those copies from a physicalist perspective, for sure, you should be able to make an exact clone of that person, and clone in the context of that is them.
But I think that gets tricky.
Wait, all of this said, can I go back to something earlier that Leo said?
Well, I want to respond to LPP for a second. The prob for functionalists, a person is only understood contextually in the environment, the sensory outputs. So in other words, imagine 2 identical MacBooks. If I put one of them in water and if I put one of them in the desert, right, it's going to either screw up the processing unit. It's going to change it to where there are now very big differences between the 2 notebooks, right? In fact, one you're definitely going to buy. You could buy a dried out MacBook. Heat really doesn't, it's not going to be as destructive as water. But so the idea, people are the same way. in terms of, or at least bodies or minds in the same way, at least for a functionalist. If you put Leo or the biological organism Leo in this environment, it will be a very different person than if you put that biological entity in the future in some other environment. They're not going to be the same person according to the functionalist. They can't be because
no, you're Danny. They would become different. But if if you're being able to accomplish what I've been clarifying with for 45 minutes, if you were able to accomplish that, then the starting point from the physicalist perspective, right? The starting point would have to be the same. Now,
yes,
as time goes by, obviously
they would develop into different persons.
Well, they're going to be different persons,
not
right?
entirely different persons. There would be changes being made, right? As they're having new experiences the original didn't have, right?
Let me ask you a question, John.
Good.
All right, so Danny, you take two laptops. You take a laptop, the source laptop, you clone it, okay?
Okay.
You copy the hard drive, and then you take that thing into the desert, okay? What is the difference between doing that and then simply taking the original and putting it in the desert?
Well, the example there, maybe water would have been a more drastic example, is that the environment,
same thing.
Yeah, the environment or the desert or whatever is going to shape the laptop to where we can distinguish it from the other laptop.
Right, but if they were exact copies, so okay, think with me here. You take an object and you copy it exactly, and then you dump it in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is an underwater thing. What if you just took the original and you dumped it in the water? What is the difference between the one that you copied? What is the difference between the copy that you then threw in the water and the original that you threw in the water?
Yeah, for the functionalist understands mental states in terms of its outputs, inputs, right, and its relation to other states of mind. So the problem is that if that's how you construe a person, if we're taking the computer analogy, if you're going to throw a laptop,
I believe I'm arguing from. I'm trying to understand the naturalistic point of view and work from that.
Not on naturalists or functionalists.
Yeah, there are a lot of types
or
of theories of mind,
physicalists.
because Leo is taking a non-reductive view of mind. He's not reducing.
I'm very much opposed to reductionism. I'm taking a functionalist perspective. The mind isn't just the structures that make it up, it's the functions that those structures engage in. You can take identical structures, put them in different environments, and they will engage in different functions, at which point they will cease to be identical.
So, John, I thought that would have been a shorter exchange, so you can take over if you want.
Okay, for the 100th time, because I don't know if this is going over Danny's head too or not. I'm not disagreeing with you guys in terms of what would be the future outcome. It's that if the physicalist, materialist, whichever word you want to use, which defines it better for you, if that is all that is required for our consciousness and our sense of self, what makes us us, if that's all that's necessary, then I agree with you 100%. The second the copy comes into existence, immediately from at that moment, changes would be starting to be different, right? Because they wouldn't be in the same place exactly. Even if they were standing next to each other, their frame of reference would still be slightly different than the other one, right? So from that moment, there would be a different path starting. I agree with you.
They see one another.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what are we missing?
But
no. Go ahead. I thought you were.
What's been being established is that from the physicalist perspective, and Danny, you're a dualist, or quasi-dualist, whatever the hell you are these days.
I'm a dualist, yeah.
Property dualist, yeah.
You have a slightly different perspective than the strict.
But functionalist,
right?
I understand the functionalist position very well, and the functionalist position is not going to understand mentality or personhood in terms of substrate. Okay,
exactly.
That's not how they're going to understand it. They're going to understand it, mental states, just in terms of input, output, in context with respect to other states of mind.
Can I give an example really quick? So take an electron. There is no electron that is different from the other. Like literally all electrons are 100% identical to each other. But I can take an electron, an electron that is in the vacuum of space, and I can take an electron that is in a very strong electromagnetic field, and they will behave differently. Now, I know that John isn't disagreeing with this. I'm not saying that he is, I'm just explicating my particular position more, is all I'm doing.
Hey, John. Hey, John. I'm going to head out. This conversation became a rabbit trail of infinite proportion almost. I have no idea where we started.
It tends to. Yeah, it does.
Well, you know what's a late night stream without a dumpster fire? Well, man, I appreciate you joining us very much, and as always, welcome. Appreciate it.
May I suggest this issue's been dealt with quite a bit in philosophy. You guys are talking about parts and wholes and identity. There's a lot that can be contributed to this conversation with that perspective and that input.
Yeah, there's a lot of epistemological things that can be associated with this discussion as well. I mean, we could go ship a thing.
I'm asking how you could duplicate the wave function.
Hey guys, hang on. Slavic's about to leave. I think he would say something. What's up, man?
Hey, so I was going to say, you should definitely think about what we talked in the beginning about that clipping your channel, make clips.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I agree. There's been some worthy ones tonight for sure.
I think that would be really cool to do. I would watch the shit out of those. I'm sorry, John. Exactly. There's some shit that happens that's just classic. Really, you ought to clip some of the stuff. You really ought to clip some of the stuff and put it out there. Some of it's just.
So I'll talk to you guys later. It was nice chatting with you guys. I know.
You too, man. Thank you. You have a great night, man.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
Okay, Kenny was saying something.
I basically got out what I was wanting to say, I think, unless I was going to say something else and just got sidetracked. But I think ultimately this issue, what we're talking about, has to go into the realm of metaphysics.
Oh,
because two
I would
laptops
agree
are not
with you.
identical.
What was that, Bob?
Because two laptops are not identical, even if the hard drive is functionally identical.
Well, this is where the metaphysics comes in. The first question to ask would be, how is one defining an identity relation?
Well, I want to hear you, but I was asking Kenny because he was making the point.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay. Well, what was that again?
You were talking about. I suggested that laptops are not perfectly identical. There are differences in them. Even if the hard drive is functionally identical, that does not mean that they are wholly identical.
Right. Yeah. What you have is an instantiation of a general, which would be the essence, blueprint, and then particulars. That the essence is telling the parts how to be organized and distributed and interrelated. That can't come from the parts. It has to be a whole. There's an ontological priority of the whole above the parts.
But why is that? Why is that not possible to be done in the same way with two different laptops from the perspective of a hard drive, specifically?
Maybe I'm not following where you all are at in the conversation because your question's not making sense to me.
You were saying that they were different in some way. What was the differentiation?
Come again about each laptop?
Yeah, so you've got.
I would say you got a number of things. I don't think you could duplicate the particular wave function of that particular laptop, whether it be the archetype essence or a sub archetype or design or nature, whatever you want to call it.
From my understanding, now I'll grant particle physics and stuff like that, but from my understanding, I have been educated with a bachelor's degree in game simulation and development. So I have been taught programming. Now, when it comes to programming, you tell a computer, if this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Well, if this, then this. So there are all these branches, right? And it's basically a decision tree. And it is pretty much deterministic. Actually, no, it's entirely deterministic. There's no chance. In fact, when you try to generate this is off topic, but when you try to generate a random number in a computer program, what you do is you take a very complicated formula that takes some number and then makes some crazy, weird, long 10-digit number. What you do is you say, okay, instead of using just some number, I'm going to use what time of day it is down to the second. And then it takes that and does a bunch of multiplication and division and stuff, and then creates this long number. It's entirely deterministic. So when I look at a computer, when I look at a laptop or anything, I ignore everything. The monitor, the keyboard, all those things, they're irrelevant. What's on the hard drive? What is programmed into the hard drive? Because that is what it is. You can take this thing, which is
yeah, I don't think I'm saying anything different. I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying.
You could put Mac programming into it and it would function just fine. And they are very different programming languages and functions and everything. But you could do it. You could take this laptop that I got from work, and you could say, you know what? I'm going to wipe the hard drive, and I'm going to rewrite it with the Mac, the Apple software, and it would function just fine. It would function differently than say the Microsoft programming, but it would do what it's supposed to do. So when I look at a laptop, when I look at a computer, the hard drive in my mind is the only thing that really matters as far as identity is concerned. And that's kind of why I was asking Leo earlier about, okay, so what if you take a laptop and you image it? And what imaging is you take all of the bits, all of them, 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 1, all across the hard drive, and you say, I'm going to copy all of that and then put it on that. They are programmatically the same. There's no difference between the two. As long as the hardware is effectively the same, you take that hard drive and you write everything on that hard drive to the other hard drive, it will do everything that is expected to do that the previous one would do. In fact, this one I actually got this 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Bob, can you develop?
I would call it functional identity.
Functional identity. Yeah, I think that's a good term.
Bob, could you get through your argument, because there's a point to what's your overall point? I'm just trying to understand it.
So it's kind of a sort of a lead in to a question or a line of questioning for Leo. Like, what is the difference between, say, this laptop and the one that I had before? Because now
are they the same brand?
Electronic or not electronic? There are electrons that are orbiting in slightly different timings.
Let me say this before I forget, but I just lost it. But you're conflating. You're conflating what an Aristotelian would say is the deutera ousia versus what we would call the ousia, or the primary substance, the substantial form versus the deuterousia, the nature of that instantiated form.
Is this a
Danny, help me.
hylomorphic view? Wait, hold on. Is this a hylomorphic view?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Danny, were those real words?
Yeah, they were real words.
Well, what did he just tell me?
You have to ask him.
In simplistic forms, there's a difference between matter and the form that which the matter takes, and that's quite simplistic. But that's again a very simplistic way of describing hylomorphism. It does go much deeper than that, but
basically we all share a identity of humanity, but we're separate instantiations that are not identically in one way to one another. But we do share the identical nature, the deuterousia.
Okay.
We share that identically, but we don't share our individual instantiated humanity identically in the same way we share the identity in that deuterousia sense.
Leo, can you restate what you just said?
What I just said? Well, I mean, I don't know. What I just said is that in a really simplistic view, hylomorphism can be understood as a difference between matter and the form that which the matter takes. If I'm
Wait, that's it. That's it. So, Kenny, is that sufficient to understand your view?
It's the notion of the composition of existent being, whether it be substance accidents, essence existence, matter form, everything, act potency, everything is in composition, which is hylomorphism, the basic idea, matter form, but we even substance accidents,
Can I ask you a question,
basic, the way we bifurcate reality and understand reality, we are composed, we're dependent, therefore God is basically the way.
Wait, are you a Christian?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you believe that Jesus died for our sins according to the scriptures, and he was buried and he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures?
Yeah.
Okay. And so
Kenny's
you have
definitely
this
a Christian.
view.
What's that?
I said
What,
Kenny's
Leo?
definitely a Christian.
Okay, well, Kenny, I'm sorry.
Listen. In the defense of Bob, Kenny's picture definitely looks like he might be a drugged out hippie. So it's
I look like your daddy.
What?
How
am I look at Jackson Rowe. Look at him. The man looks like he's a clean-cut individual. And Jackson, do you believe that Jesus died for your sins according to the scriptures?
Danny
He
look
was
like?
buried and raised on the third day according to the scriptures?
I'm not a huge believer in that, no, but I respect your belief.
And listen, Bob, you're way off on Jackson, because in spite of the fact that he looks like a clean-cut, just totally law-abiding citizen, he's actually a world-renowned animal smuggler, and is currently facing prison time for his illegal activities.
I've heard that he's even killed a couple baby chickens.
No.
Whoa, hey.
No,
chickens.
He didn't just kill the chickens. No, Kenny, you didn't get the whole story. He didn't just kill some chickens. He sacrificed them to the man who's. Oh, never mind.
This is from the salamanders I imported.
So,
what it is?
So Jackson, did you keep
what is that there?
Photographic evidence of your illegal activity?
Well, they know about it, so it's fine.
I own 11 chickens and 2 ducks. You better not be killing chickens.
No, I'm not killing chickens. I was importing Chinese giant salamanders into the country. That's
cool.
Yeah, that's what that was.
He's a smuggler.
No, what Jackson's not telling you is that the United States was just a
he's a spice runner.
He was actually shipping them off to Assad in Syria. And that's why he has a picture of him, because he was his patron, and was helping to enable him to engage in all of this. See, right there, I told you, right there. Proof beyond all doubt. He was actually an animal smuggler for Assad. That's actually what's going down. That's the real reason. So this whole I was arrested for salamanders. No. It was actually for terrorism and supporting Assad's salamander addiction.
They were suspicious about the Assad stuff. Actually, you're not far off.
You know, I think I saw that episode of Seinfeld where Art Vandelay is an importer-exporter.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode of full episode of Seinfeld.
What?
Fucking hilarious.
All right, whatever. I've seen a lot.
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So it's interesting you say that, Jackson. So the girl I'm dating right now, she's very similar in that context. Was never able to, quote, get into Seinfeld. And I have come to the realization that I also didn't get into Seinfeld until I sat down one day and binged from the first season. Because up until then, I'd always just seen like random episodes from different seasons and stuff. Yeah. And even though Seinfeld is a show about nothing, there actually is something in Lawrence Krauss style. And you have to, observe the quantum foam from season 1 in order to appreciate the future seasons, because there's so many different like references back to previous episodes that if you don't like, the humor is not quite as good if you don't have those like, oh, they're referencing XYZ. It's just a fact. So if you ever decide to get in Seinfeld and give it another shot, start at the beginning. Do not start further into it, because even though supposedly the episodes are standalone,
but you know about the
that's
FBI,
interesting, because
the thing you said about the FBI, John, you're not too far off. They did question me for about a good hour or two. The FBI did.
So how did you overcome that?
I wasn't guilty of whatever they accused me of, so that was easy.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but anyway, interesting story, I guess.
Uh-oh, we lost Danny. His wife came and got him.
My wife.
I mean, he's on Central Time. It's 12:34, so it's pretty sure. We all know this is past his curfew. Okay, so somebody was saying something. So we know
no one knows anymore.
I was talking about salamanders and the FBI.
And I was
Leo, what is your
Star Wars
greatest
references.
argumentation against God?
What?
What's your greatest argument against God?
He has none.
Greatest argument against God?
Yeah.
Would be so like a classical theistic God, or
well, now let me correct.
God of Christianity is.
May I correct Leo's theological naivete here?
I don't know if he's naive, but go for it.
No, theological naivete. I'm poking at him a little bit. I really like Leo, but he's not a theologian, and this is where a lot of atheists, they begin with a real problem. That the issue is they don't know enough theology to know what atheism is really all about.
Well, I do. Atheism is nothing more than I do.
And
atheism is nothing more than the belief that God does not exist.
Turner inaugural lecture at Cambridge, where he schooled atheists on actually how to be atheists. Like, they don't really know what they're denying. They basically deny a Zeus concept of God, which I do too.
I don't know what that means. If I want to know what the philosophers of atheism are saying, I'm going to look at Graham Oppie, the work by Paul Draper, Schellenberg, J.L. Mackie, or not J.L. Mackie, Schellenberg, Mackie. I'm going to look at these guys, and these are the guys that I have looked at. These are some of the most prominent atheist philosophers literally in the world.
And people they could say dumb things too, just like me.
Well,
I
of
can
course,
say dumb
people
things.
like Flanagan, people like Craig, people like Winter have said that many of the arguments that these men have presented are serious challenges to theism.
Oh, no, they are not.
Well, but this is what William Lane Craig, this is what Alvin
Lane Craig,
this is what Richard Swinburne, this is what some of the leading Christian philosophers say about the arguments being presented by some of these philosophers.
No,
they're not saying that these arguments somehow refute Christianity, but they are saying that these are arguments that theists should take seriously and make a serious and rigorous attempt at addressing.
Give me one.
The argument from evil.
Give me one and let me show you how naive.
The moral fruits argument, the divine hiddenness argument,
No, just
argument from failure. There's many arguments. We could go Graham Uppy's theoretical virtues argument for naturalism.
Let's go through
we could go for Paul Draper's
Asian
probabilistic argument for
naturalism. Pump your brakes. Let's go through one.
Pick one.
Yes, let's go through.
You pick. I'll let you pick.
It already happened. So Leo, what do you think is the most compelling?
I don't think that any one argument is the most compelling. Just like when I was a Catholic,
I
didn't think
understand,
that
but
any one argument was the most compelling for theism. I think it's a cumulative case. So you're never going to get out of me one argument that is the most convincing, because I think it's a cumulative case.
We can attempt to go through all of them, but would you like to pick one that,
no, I want
maybe
you guys
bugs
to pick
more?
one. I want you guys to pick one, not me.
Okay, so then can you list a few?
So there's divine hiddenness, there's the meager moral fruits argument, there's the argument
What's that
from
one?
failure.
Meager moral fruits.
Meager moral fruits
It
says
sounds
that
cute.
I
like it. I like the name. It sounds cute.
Given theism, if say something like Christian theism were true, since it proposes to offer moral fulfillment, since God morally fulfills, and we always hear Christians talk about how their religion, belief in God morally fulfills them.
That is not even the gospel. There again,
you don't even know what Christianity is.
Wait, Kenny.
You don't even know what Christianity is. He's theological naive. Just want to point that out, guys.
Can I make the argument?
No, you didn't even describe Christianity.
Well, let him make the point, and then we can talk.
The argument doesn't necessarily work against specifically Christianity, though. So, and this
that's your context. Let's be a functionalist.
It's not my context
and obey your context.
Kenny, wait, Leo, Kenny, let him present this potential refutation that he believes is a problem for him. Let's hear the entire thing.
Fair enough.
Quick to listen, slow to speak.
Yeah,
Okay?
tell that to an ADHD guy that sleep deprived. Yeah, or deprived.
I'm ADHD.
This is
I'm
Proverbs,
sleep deprived.
Proverbs.
ADHD.
A wise man is quick to listen, slow to speak.
Yeah, you can quote that to me, but the biology of my brain will differ. So don't even go there.
I have ADHD
don't over spiritualize stuff to me.
I have ADHD as well.
Me as well.
Okay? I also have OCD.
I have OCD too.
We can overcome this.
And I was tested positive for GAME.
You want to keep talking. I'm just saying, look, let's listen.
Dude, listen, man. Don't try to pontificate toward me. Just having a little fun. It's late at night. Listen, it's late at night, dude. This is kind of fun. We can be serious and fun.
Children, let's calm down.
Sorry,
Papa. We're gonna go to 1 minute timers, and okay, Leo, make your argument. Okay. I will start the clock when you go. Nobody interrupt him, and then whoever wants to respond. Who wants to respond to this argument that Kenny or that?
I think Bob was the one that asked a question, so I do think it is fair to let.
Actually, you know what? Bob can respond and Kenny can respond. Go ahead, Leo. Whenever you start.
Yeah. So the meager moral fruits argument, I'm trying to get this in a minute, is an argument that says that because of the statements made by not just Christians, but I'm going to use them as example here, Christians, given what Christian scripture says, that God morally fulfills the followers, that Christianity is morally fulfilling. God is the root of human morality. What we would expect to see in the world as a result of that is that Christians live significantly more morally fruitful lives. But what we see in the world is that anybody of any religion, but again, I'm using specifically Christians here, don't seem to live any lives that are significantly more morally fruitful than others. So the moral fruits of theism, particularly Christianity in this instance, are meager. And this is not what we would expect if God existed. Now, again, this one argument does not by any means show that God doesn't exist. It's merely one brick in a much larger wall, but that is the meager moral fruits argument in a nutshell.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Let me reset the clock. Let me reset the clock. Hang on. Okay. All right. Whenever you go ahead.
Okay, so I think there are some Calvinistic presuppositions that are involved in what your understanding is. From my understanding of Scripture, it simply says that Jesus died for our sins, and he was buried, and he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures. Now, if you read 1 Corinthians, these people are presumably saved, and there's at least one person who is banging his dad's wife. Okay, and Paul rebukes him and says, "Hey, kick that guy out for the destruction of the flesh. Turn him over to Satan, so that his spirit will be saved." There's not a guarantee in Scripture that if you understand the gospel, that you will be sinless or you'll be less sinful. The idea is that Jesus paid for your sins, and you should try to live better.
Are you done?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. All right, Kenny, do you want to respond as well?
Bob?
I got more.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Christians are called to live holy lives. To answer
Yes,
Leo, that is a modern argument, and the lives of most Christians now are crap. But the previous generations were nothing like the Christians of our day, and they lived exemplary moralistic lives. So there's a problem, myopicness and atheism there.
Are you a Calvinist?
I have no idea what that has to do with the price of tea in China, man.
Only a question. I'm sorry, I'm taking
only a response with a rhetorical question. We can do this all night. I think I don't like you.
I'm sorry. Like, this is my understanding of Scripture. If you have a different understanding, I'm willing to discuss it. I asked if you were a Calvinist because I wanted clarity.
No, you wanted to maybe poison the well and
I'm sorry.
and
I'm
lots
sorry.
of things
I
like
know
that.
a lot of people. Please, I know a lot of people do that. That's not me. John, please help me out here. That's not what I do, right?
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I want to know your views so I can understand who I'm talking. So
I'm a biblicist. I believe that
there are a lot.
I believe that when you come to the gospel, you are regenerated, justified, which leads to sanctification necessarily. A person who claims to have only intellectual assent and notitia is nothing more than a demon, as per James. You must have fiducia. You must trust in the gospel, which necessarily comes with a changed, regenerated heart and a lifestyle that is different. Period.
Even the demons believe and shudder.
Yes. And they have notitia and intellectual assent. Like
what's
all
notitia?
The other. What's that?
Notitia? What is that?
Yes. Note, like content, knowledge, a notebook. Saving faith has knowledge, it has intellectual assent, and it has fiducia or trust or entrusting.
Fiducia. Okay. So, Leo, I want you to note that I want you to note that me and Kenny, what was your name? Kenny, I think.
I believe
we have a difference in our understanding of Scripture.
Yep.
Okay.
Different hermeneutic.
And that is a common problem throughout most Christians.
I think I also think those evidential chips count in favor of naturalism. The fact that people, even within a singular religion, can't agree on what God is or how to worship Him. I actually think that counts in favor of a naturalist.
There's actually universal agreement on the nature of God and the nature of the gospel.
I don't know about that.
Variants do not do away with the unity and the the voice of the historic church.
I can tell you right now, American
Okay, so
evangelicals and English Anglicans are going to disagree on a lot of scriptural issues. They're both
Yeah,
Christians.
but not on the basics.
Wait. Leo, you need to understand that there are a few groups of people that by large majority, most people that claim to be some form of Christian will say that is a sect. Most of them will agree that Mormons are a sect and Jehovah's Witnesses are a sect.
Well, yeah, but so are Presbyterians or Lutherans or Baptists or Catholics.
Did you just add Jehovah's Witnesses in with Christianity?
Well, Jehovah's Witnesses are.
We can talk about other things.
No.
But Mormons.
Who just said that? I wasn't quite paying attention. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
They believe.
It's called equivocation. If they believe that Christ is a creature, and they call a creature Christ, it's called equivocation. Basic grammar.
Hey, John, I don't know who's talking right now. Can we put the countdown down for a second? Or turn the countdown on. Okay, yeah, that works too.
Wait, but that's whose turn is it to speak?
Talk?
Quick, diffuse it.
Somebody, anybody. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are Christian. They believe that they believe in the God of Abraham. They believe
they do not.
To Abraham.
Well,
and they believe
that
Christian. Also incarnate in
That's again another theological failure on your part. No.
Okay, guys. Hang on. Wait. Listen, we have new dumpster fire to start. Okay, Leo, go ahead. I will start the clock. Make your case to why Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians, and then we'll let Kenny respond. All right, whenever you start talking.
Yeah, so this is really simple. So they believe in the God of Abraham, the God who revealed himself to the prophet Abraham at the foundation stone. They believe that this God incarnated himself in the person of Jesus Christ and sacrificed himself on the cross to atone for our sins. Despite the fact that they have other scriptural or hermeneutic disagreements with Christians, doesn't remove the fact that they agree with the fundamental tenets of Christianity, that the God of Abraham exists. It is a singular God. This God not only revealed himself to the prophet Abraham, but also incarnated in the person of Jesus and sacrificed himself at the cross to atone for our sins, such that whoever believes on him shall be saved from damnation.
All right,
Kenny?
let me reset the clock. Hang on one sec. All right, Kenny, whenever you're ready. Kenny, are you going to rebut? If you're talking,
Sorry, I was on mute. Go ahead. Let's start with the word Christian, which happens to do with the teachings of Christ and his statements. Jesus Christ said he was indeed the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus Christ, the Christian God they serve, they believe that Jesus Christ is actually the archangel of the Old Testament. So they are not Christian in the truest sense. Equivocally, they are Christian, but there is only similarity in the sound and not the meaning. Now, I'm stopping there.
In virtue of what specifically are they not Christian? Do they deny that the God of Abraham revealed himself through the prophet Abraham?
Hey, I want a minute to say something.
Yeah, we're getting some weird feedback. What's going on? There's like a weird noise.
I think it's on Kenny's end.
Hey, Kenny, if you're talking, you're getting like super muffled.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me now at all?
Yeah, you're coming.
It sounds clear now.
Okay.
Do we want to start over and let Kenny?
Okay, Leo, restate your question, and then we'll let Kenny respond.
My question was, in virtue of what are Jehovah's Witnesses not, like in virtue of what specifically are Jehovah's Witnesses not Christian? Like, do they deny that the God of Abraham revealed himself through the prophet of Abraham? Do they deny that Jesus was God incarnate who sacrificed himself on the cross to atone for our sins? Like what?
Yes, they deny that Jesus Christ is God incarnate.
I have never met.
They believe that Jesus is, quote, a God, not the God. See, it's your theological naivete that's got you in this conundrum right here. That's why you've never heard what they've said. A God. They believe little g God. That's how they'll say it.
But God is a God, right?
No.
God is not a God?
No.
So he's not your problem there. So he's not a maximally great being.
No,
God
he is not. He is beyond the categories of being itself. See, that's the problem.
So you don't accept Anselm's ontological argument?
Yes, I do. But
so
God
is maximally
he said
great,
the greatest conceivable being.
Yes,
he did not say he was the greatest maximal being.
No, he said
he
God
did
is
not
maximally
equivocate the nature of being. He did not bring God down to our level of being and say that the infinite is just like the finite.
Leo, I don't think Kenny had the full minute to respond.
Okay, well, hang on. We're just gonna. Okay, I'm reading. This is an example of why I get so irritated with people on YouTube. So, this whole question about Jesus Christ. Okay, so if you use Google, so Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus was created by Jehovah as the Archangel Michael before the physical world existed and is a lesser, though mighty, God. I mean, that's like a fundamental tenet of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
now, right here, I'm going to refuse to talk to Leo until he does a little more reading in theology and not claim to be conversant and knowledgeable.
And then regarding,
don't worry, Leo. I'm not going to be a jerk. I'll still talk to you.
And then regarding,
what a nice Christian man you must be. You're so much better than me.
If he wants to just claim I'm ignorant,
how blessed you are.
And then regarding the incarnation, Jehovah's Witnesses believe that when Jesus was born on earth, he was a mere human and not God in human flesh.
Yeah, so do the Arians, or the Arians, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You're going to hurt yourself, Leo, if you try to do any more theology.
No, I'm not. I mean, if that's the only objection you have, that's fine. I'm stupid and I don't understand theology. That's fine. That's great.
Yeah, it affects your theology, so your understanding of the nature of theos, which is fundamental to your atheism.
Well, not really, no. Because I would just say that I'm a naturalist, and that subsumes atheism, but it's much more broad than merely atheism. So it doesn't really matter how you define atheism. I'm a naturalist.
Okay, can I have my minute?
Sure, and then I'm going to bed. So we're gonna wrap this up. So yes, let me restart the clock, and whenever you start.
Okay, so as far as Jehovah's Witnesses, specifically, one of the biggest problems that I've had is that they have taken the Bible, the scriptures, the copies of all of the scriptures. We have tons of them, tens of thousands, or not tens of thousands. We have 10,000 plus manuscripts of what has been copied. Now, what the Jehovah's Witnesses have done is they have altered, I'm serious, they have altered specific key texts, specifically John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. The Jehovah Witnesses New World Translation Bible says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. Now, this is the primary distinction between Jehovah's Witnesses and mainline Christianity.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't in line with like mainstream Christianity. It doesn't mean they're not Christians.
Okay, well, on that note, obviously you didn't listen to a word that was being argued or the points that are being made by Kenny in regards to why they're not Christians. But
I guess I missed the points, so I didn't hear them.
Well, yeah, because you literally just regurgitated. Oh, well, yeah, they have some slightly different points, but they're still Christians, even though in terms of the fundamentals of what Christianity actually proclaims, they're not even close.
Well, they are pretty close. The biggest issue is that they're non-Trinitarian. That's really about it.
Leo, please stop. You're embarrassing yourself now.
And
I
you're
mean,
gonna hurt
if
yourself.
that's all you're gonna say, fine. But if you have like a meaningful response, I would love to
Yes,
hear
you
it.
don't know what you're talking about.
That's
Stop.
not a meaningful response.
Yes, it
That's
actually
you,
is.
that's just you don't know what you're talking about. That's not
Yeah,
impressive
you
in the
you
slightest.
actually don't, and
by
I can
your
demonstrate it, but I don't want to embarrass you.
Leo, by your
Go
logic,
ahead, embarrass me.
Leo, by your logic, Islam is just a slightly different version of Christianity. By your logic,
No, it's not. No, not by my logic. No.
Yeah.
That's another topic. But
Kenny,
so,
would you agree? No, hang on. I'm talking about in the context of which.
Yeah,
the
he just said that
point.
that's an Abrahamic God. They serve that. I mean, yeah,
I didn't say
Leo's stumbling
Abrahamic.
all over himself.
I didn't use the word Abrahamic. How am I stumbling over myself? Seems like you guys are stumbling
Should
over what I said.
rewind the
what it
tape
was.
where he
Go
said
ahead.
the Abrahamic God?
Bring it up. Bring it up. Rewind it. Find where I said it, please.
we have a lot of people trying to talk, and they all have opinions, and we're trying to get our edge in.
I mean, if all you're going to
so
claim
we
is I
gotta
said
be
Abrahamic
patient.
God, and that was my whole argument, then you're
haven't
really
had that
missing the argument I presented.
No.
Well, I agree.
Right.
I agree that they believe in the Abrahamic God. They believe in the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They believe in that same God. Okay, that's true. There is revelation, particularly in the New Testament, and you can find it in the Old Testament, though it's a bit hidden. You can find in the New Testament very clearly, particularly in John 1:1, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then, the Word became flesh, and that's obviously Jesus. If you're looking at the context, okay. The Jehovah's Witnesses, this is one of the things that they specifically deny. They say that Jesus was a created person, created creature, something like that. But they do believe that Jesus is Lord. They do believe that he died for their sins. This is a similar thing with Catholics. Catholics believe that Jesus died for their sins. Now, so the problem comes about when you start thinking about what are the implications of Jesus dying for your sins. Now, anybody who is not Catholic, cults, believes that Jesus died for all of your sins. It's already done, and your sins are paid for. And if you just believe that he did it for you, then you can go to heaven. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons
don't believe that.
We can come back to that. I may be mistaken. But Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons in particular don't believe that Jesus paid for all of your sins. They won't say it. What they'll say is, Mormons in particular, this one I'm more familiar with, they'll say, because it's in their work, or it's in the Book of Mormon, that Jesus will save you after all that you can do.
Wait,
So
I thought we were talking about JWs though, Jehovah's Witnesses. Those aren't Mormons.
That's true. That's true. They have similar beliefs, and the reason that I switched to Mormons is because I'm more familiar with the specific doctrine that they hold, and I'm less familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, admittedly. There are some things that I do know about them. Particularly, they rewrite. I'm not kidding. That they take the accepted text that's been since AD 0. Well, not AD 0, but since the beginning of Christianity, they take all of these texts and they say, you know what?
40 AD.
We're going to add a word. Instead of in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Instead, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. They add the word a. They do it deliberately because they have a specific agenda that they are trying to get to.
Mormons are on a whole nother playing field than the JWs. I mean, the Mormons take it to a whole nother extreme. I mean, they're
Hey, John. There,
I want to point out here that since I brought out my Halloween character Posture Kenny out for fun tonight, that your chat has been going crazy, and I would say that people are getting the word that I'm Posture Kenny here. So I want half of the money that is come in tonight.
Well, irony of ironies. I don't think there's been any super chats since you came in. So
and Smokey's wanting to come in. A few others. I know you guys don't get along very well, but I think Smokey would like to come in and address some of the things, to have my back here a little bit, and I'd like to have somebody have my back on some of these issues.
I just want to say something. If somebody calls himself a Christian, I'm inclined to believe them. I don't know anything about theology, but if the Jehovah's Witness says they're a Christian, I'll be like, all right.
Well, I'd say you're dumb.
All right.
That's not a response. Anyway, what I would say is that it depends on how the academics examine Christianity, and the academics consider Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics and Anglicans and Presbyterians and Baptists and all of them. They're all various forms of Christians. That's what the academics say. That's what the professionals who know infinitely more than all of us combined do about Christianity and its origins and its teachings. That's what they say. So
again, Leo, you don't even know how to classify these religious groups. You failed again.
No. Leo, look, you are talking about a bunch of people who are definitely not Christians, correct? You're talking about scholars and stuff?
I'm talking about Christian scholars, New Testament scholars. But
okay,
scholars,
so
Leo,
the Vatican does not consider Mormons to be.
I don't care what the Vatican says.
Nor do the most predominant Protestant churches.
Yeah, the scholars don't either. I go off what the scholars say.
Hang on. Silence. Everybody, Leo, you actually think that the scholars, many of which are from the Catholic Church and derived from it, you're actually suggesting that the majority of scholars would disagree with the Vatican on something like this?
Well, it depends on what you mean by scholars. The scholars I'm talking about aren't going to... I'm sure there's some
Are you saying that the Richard Carriers agree that he is?
No, I'm talking like the Bart Ehrmans and the Robert Van Vorsts and the Craig Evans and people like that, like biblical scholars, New Testament scholars, Old Testament scholars, ancient Near Eastern scholars, early Christianity, scholars, people like that. People who study Christianity, its origins, how it developed, those people.
Mm-hmm. And you think that he would he's published his position on this?
Who?
Ehrman. That Mormonism is just
I've heard Ehrman say that things like Catholicism, Mormonism, and Jehovah's Witnesses can be reasonably considered forms of Christianity. Yes, most of the relevant scholars on Christianity, on its origins, on its all that stuff, are going to say that. Yes.
Bart Ehrman won't say that stuff in front of his colleagues.
He already has. When I heard him say it was at a conference. It was a video of him at a conference. So
he says nonsense in public, but he doesn't.
Conferences are attended by scholars.
Can actually.
This was an academic conference.
Again, he says things in public.
This was an academic
that he won't
conference.
Say in private with scholars who can correct him.
Scholars attended this.
Pay
conference.
attention and unclog your ears.
Well, it doesn't seem you're listening to what I'm saying. This wasn't just open to the public. Sure, some of the public was there.
Said
this was
public.
Yes, public. This was I understand how to spell public, and I know what public means, Kenny. Some of the public were present at this. This was an academic conference.
And he says crazy things in front of the public.
Do you know what you're talking about?
He says crazy things in public to get attention, and they may be in front of scholars
just repeating
as well. He will not say things as per Dan Wallace's own words. He will not say certain things because he knows he's saying a bunch of nonsense.
I understand the behavior from Leo, but Kenny,
Oh, Bob, shut up, dude. Don't judge me. You have no idea who I am.
I'm
My
not,
context in life.
I'm
You have
surprised John
nothing.
isn't
You
reining
know
him in.
nothing
he reins
about
me
me.
in, but Kenny can just
I'm
go
not.
fuck off on everybody.
Leo knows that I like him. We can go
I like
back
Kenny, but
back and
yeah,
forth
I mean,
and go have a beer afterward, or an old duels if my beer would offend you. But Leo and I know one another, and we're friends. So you stay out of this, dude. You're assuming way too much.
Well, okay, maybe I am. Okay,
Yeah, so
I don't
shut
know
up.
Really.
How about that?
Bob, you got to get with it, man.
I mean, fine, okay. I'm sorry. What?
All right.
Yeah, a light beer drinker. Exactly.
All right, children. All right, children. Let's all calm down. It's getting late. It's past people's bedtimes. It's time to go to sleep.
Whoa,
Okay.
it's 1 a.m.
Yep, 1:07.
Holy shit, it is.
At least for my time, anyway. Kenny's in California, which is like a whole nother universe. So, like,
What state are you in, John?
I'm in Tennessee.
He's in a state of
so Arkansas
delusion.
and Tennessee are the same time zone.
Sorry, what?
Arkansas and Tennessee are the same time
Arkansas?
zone.
Dude, Central Time
really
Zone goes
bad
all the way
time
to
zone.
Texas.
Hey, we're in Arkansas already. I'm in Arkansas too.
Nice.
I'm in corn country.
You're in Iowa, right? Yeah.
Yes. Corn country. Corn and pigs. That's.
I had a buddy in the Marine Corps that was from Iowa.
There's a lot of Marines from Iowa. I think it's the fucking wrestlers. So I'm sorry. I think it's the wrestlers that they need.
Leo, I just appreciate that every time you say that, you're like, oh, your immediate response after you say it, oh, wait, I shouldn't. That makes me feel good. I'm happy. Okay.
Yeah, I forget that I'm on a channel where most of then I believe the owner as well does not prefer that language. So I try to.
I mean, honestly, when I lost my temper earlier and I dropped like multiple F-bombs, so it didn't really matter to me. But
well, John's a bad person.
I don't care.
I don't think so.
I don't mind if there's the occasional usage of expletives in context, but if it's like every other word, that's a totally different context.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm just saying, I really appreciate that when Leo does it, he's like, oh, wait a minute, this offends people. I'm sorry. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I try to do my best to.
Bob,
even
your
if
light
I don't,
beer offends me.
even if I don't take offense to something personally, I do try to remember that there may be other people that do take offense to some of the actions or the behaviors that I may engage in on a typical basis, and that I should, around those particular individuals, do my best to refrain from engaging in those actions or behaviors.
That's always a good thing to do. Good on you.
And I know that you have expressed that you don't like that language. So every time I say it, it's like, oh, I gotta remember. I can't say that.
I appreciate that so much. I understand its habit, but I appreciate that you just thank you.
Yeah, I like you, Bob. You're a good guy.
Hey, Bob.
I was happy when you came in. When I saw you come in, I really was.
Yeah,
Hey,
Bob,
Bob.
you seem cool.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Are you that holy that you can't let somebody be themselves by saying cuss words in your presence? I've never met somebody that sanctified. Could you clarify for me?
I am only holy because he is holy.
Honestly, I think that's the response I'd given.
I strive to be holy. I strive to stop. You know what? I've said, oh man, it was either the F word or the S word more than once earlier today when I was dealing with something. Like, I'm not a perfect person. I don't think that I pretend to be, but I do try to be better. And I think
you try to
that
police Leo, who's not a Christian. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Because different things.
Can I be honest here for a second with you, Bob? Just to.
I was thanking Leo for taking concern for my opinions.
Why should he be concerned?
Because I care.
Shouldn't you be the bigger person?
Because I care about people.
No, I know, but I'm going after Bob. I want to chase his logic to its absurd conclusion so we can learn something here.
All right, Bob. Yeah, Bob can handle it.
I'm trying to be helpfully, sarcastically pastoral.
That's translated into a asshole. But go ahead.
That's what I'm getting. Yeah.
It's the NIV translation.
You should read the King James version.
I know. I've been told.
Look,
this has been a lot of fun. It has.
Now, I mentioned it a couple times earlier on when I first showed up. Leo said a couple things, and every time I said language, and then Leo picked up on it. Like I didn't say, "Hey, you're a horrible person" or anything. I just, I said, "Hey, language," and Leo picked up on that and said, "You know what? Bob doesn't like that," and has made an effort to avoid that. And that's all I ask. He's respected me and my opinions, and I love him for that.
I love
him anyway.
You really didn't have to say anything. You just should have flashed your light beer in front of him. He would have known you're a sissy.
What? Say what again? What about me being a sissy? Okay, hold
light
on.
beer.
Do you want to go to James?
Light beer. You drinking light beer? That's for sissies, right? That's what I've heard.
I don't want to get drunk.
No, light beer.
Yeah, I don't want to get drunk.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I drink beer because I like the taste, but I don't want to drink.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Old commercials about light beer.
He is fucking with you, Bob. He's fucking with you. Light beer, heavy beer.
I don't know. Like it sounds like the start of this whole thing was attack on me, and I'm like, I thought I was being a nice guy.
No, he's just giving you shit. I drink heavier, which I don't even consider Budweiser to be a heavy beer. Like a heavy beer to me is like Guinness. That's a heavy beer. But Budweiser is heavier than like Bud Light.
There's a difference, and Guinness is. Oh man,
Guinness.
When I was in the Marine Corps, one of my buddies tried to get me to try. I tried Guinness because he told me, "Hey, look, Guinness is like this is great beer."
It's delicious. It's delicious. It is.
I can't drink Guinness.
Guinness is not less ABV than Budweiser. Guinness is not below 5%. At least the Guinness I am drinking.
Guinness is just like the flavor is so different. Now again, I've got a lot of years of drinking beer on me, so my tolerance may be up and those kinds of things since I left the Marine Corps. And that was the last time I tried Guinness. But when I remember trying Guinness, it was very heavy.
Okay, so Google says it is 4.2.
Yeah, I found the one.
I
found the one that I drank. It was the Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, which was the 7.5. That's what I was drinking. That's usually what I get. Mm-hmm.
Where do you live?
Yep, that's the one.
You're in Iowa?
Yep, that's the one with the more yellow label.
It's
yep,
five,
the Guinness Foreign
Extra. The extra stout is 5.6.
Well, this is the Guinness
Maddox,
Foreign
are
Extra
people
Stout.
not getting the
7.5
clue that
ABV.
I'm playing and joking tonight? There's a few people taking me awfully seriously in the chat.
Well, in fairness to them, you have
social advice in the future. When you meet somebody that you've never talked to before, you should be cautious about, look, okay. I've dealt with this my entire life. When I deal with a new person, I had to learn, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything like that, but this is something that I've learned is that if you've got a sense of humor that is not normal to most people that you encounter, that when you deal with somebody that's new, you need to be cautious about how you introduce your humor.
You know what? That's
you
a fair
are being
point.
humorous.
I appreciate
think
that.
you are being humorous.
That's a fair
When
point.
you were
I received that.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Kenny, I wasn't picking up on that. I just thought you were kind of being a jerk at first, but now I see you were joking.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to learn. If you don't mind, how old are you?
Well, let me tell you, I have come to see the YouTube community as very strange, and so I've come to start playing the character.
Atheist YouTube community specifically, because it is a very strange community.
Yeah, and the Christians on here are really, really crazy. And so sometimes I'll come in and push it just to see what kind of character I'm dealing with. And from my perspective, you kind of failed, Bob, because, you know, I'm taking what you're saying and I'm applying it to heart. You know, maybe I shouldn't joke, but I assumed I've been around the community enough. I know who you are now that I can read the screen. So I did assume some familiarity, but let's both learn from it. I'm okay with that.
Listen,
Okay,
I think it's
in
fairly
what way
established
do you think that I have failed?
What was that? I didn't hear that.
Oh, John kind of talked at the same time I did.
Well,
and what
I think at this point, gentlemen, we're going into like the counseling session, and I'm too tired for that. So
can I talk
you
Bob up
guys
for a
need,
second?
yes, but if you guys need to go and have like a little cuddle session, I totally get it. Nobody's going to judge. Y'all need to go and, like, you know, talk things out, stroke each other's hair and such. I don't know, whatever. That's probably the best way to calm down Kenny and get him to accept you if you go and, like, you know, compliment his hair. It's just what's going to happen. But go ahead, Leo.
Straight to the top with
I just wanted to say, though I would probably vehemently disagree with Bob on many aspects, it's not like that there aren't others. In fact, there's at least 3 others in this room I can think of. But he is a very kind person. He's willing to listen. He's interested in trying to understand what your position is and where you're coming from, and addressing it from his perspective the best that he can. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate the most out of him. And that's why I respect him. That's why I love him, is that he's honest, he's genuine, and he's kind. Even though we would disagree on things, I would bet that me and him could still go have a beer together at the end of the day and get along.
Yeah, sure.
Well, given the
But
fact
Leo,
that I think
remember,
the 2 of you have been drinking together simultaneously on streams before, I would say there's a very strong probability you could have a beer together since you've both been drinking at the same time on YouTube. So I'm just saying. Go ahead.
But Leo, I appreciate that, and I really do. I greatly appreciate that observation. I want you to not forget that I am a Christian, and I desperately want you to come to the knowledge of Christ. And I'm just thinking all the time, like, and maybe we just need to have a conversation. What are these hang-ups that you have? What answers do you need? And I don't know what they are, but I'm willing to try.
Yeah, and me and you have never really had one of those one-on-ones where we can get at each other's worldviews, and I would totally be okay with that.
So you know what's going through my mind right now? I'm going to tell you. I feel like I am in that scenario right now from college where I've been drinking all night, and there was a bunch of trash talking earlier on, and everybody was all mad at each other earlier.
I love you, man.
And then, yep. And there was, you know what, man? I know I was an asshole earlier. Me too, buddy. I'm sorry, man. Like, I just, sometimes just get a little worked up. I care about you.
Exactly.
I do. Me too, man. You know what? We just need to be friends, man. Like, this is gonna help.
That's exactly what it's like.
And
perfect.
And I'm not.
love you, man.
I'm really tired.
This is man, yep, that's exactly what when I was listening to you two go back and forth, it's like the mortal enemies throwing blows. Oh, let's hug it out, man.
Hey, again, John, I'm serious. I know that I contributed to the dumpster fire, and I want part of the money that is being raised when you run commercials on this and are monetized.
Okay, if I ever monetize any of my videos, I'll do that. We can share this one.
And this character, Posture Kenny, is available for hire.
Is it an NFT? Can I buy it?
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
I don't even know what it
NFT?
is. I'm just using the fancy term.
LLC.
Non-fungible token.
It's some sort of digital something or the other that people own, but they don't really own, but maybe they kind of own, but maybe again they kind of don't. Who really knows?
That's
very weird.
That's funny. There was an Indian gentleman that came in on the stream I was on earlier, and telling the joke, and basically it's like, look at this, and he calls his son retard, and then the butt of the joke is he gets us to tell him what the object is, and he goes, "Great retard," and I fell right for it. Man, I just loved it. Totally needed it.
Alrighty, guys, I'm going to take off. I know it got heated, but I appreciate you letting me come on here, John, and keeping me on, even though you had to put me backstage a few times. And naturally, Bob, Kenny, Sal, Jackson, John, everybody, much love. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
Much.
You have a good night, man.
Well.
All right. On that note, let's do last words because I'm exhausted. It's time to go.
Yeah, John, and I'm just gonna sing "We Are the World," so you know where I'm going. So I'll just bow out now.
All right.
1 Corinthians
night, guys.
15:1-4, the gospel by which you are saved is that Christ Jesus died for our sins according to the scriptures. He was buried and he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures. Believe that he died for your sins and you are saved. God bless you.
Have a good night, Bob. Jackson, any last words?
All right. Yeah, I was having the exact same thought when they were making up that it's like after a night of drinking with your friends and you've been partying or whatever, and then you come down to start calming down and you talk things out. So that's exactly what I was thinking. But anyway, congratulations on the 2,000 subscribers. And yeah, that's it.
Appreciate it. Well, you have a good night, Jackson. Get some sleep, and congrats on overcoming COVID and all that fun stuff. And appreciate you're always welcome, as you know. I don't know, is Sal still with us, or is he asleep? Sal is only here in virtual sense, not in actual reality, I don't think. Well, on that note, folks, I appreciate everybody who has stuck it out through the dumpster fires, the interesting combos, the back and forth, the quasi-drunken hug session at the very end between Leo and Bob, and tossing a little posture Kenny. He was also getting some hug time in there. But folks, in all seriousness, appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks for helping me get the channel to where it is. Hopefully we'll go even further in 2022. And in line with the overarching questions regarding our existence, as I always like to say at the end, make sure that whatever conclusion you reach is ultimately a logical, plausible, and probable one. Have a good night, folks.